So anyway, that's the secret of life. Now, I would tell everyone, but I think only you guys should.
Wow.
Should.
That's pretty profound, Rick.
Yeah,
Nick,
yeah.
whatever your name is.
Whoever you are.
Yeah, it's very emotional and life changing.
Absolutely,
all that information.
Little tear. Well, look, it's Steffi, baby.
It's Steph. She's joining the call.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
We're already live.
I noticed.
I just hit the button.
I noticed. I know you were not before because I got on the YouTube page first.
Oh, okay.
But I quit out of it. So.
All right. And you need to select your microphone.
Why?
It's audio stuff.
It is selected.
That's what you think.
I mean, I believe you that it's not, but it says it is.
No, I know, but it's not.
Hold on.
Okay.
Then unselect and reselect it.
I just did.
All right. Who's got my red pen?
I don't.
I had a red pen the other day, but I don't think it was yours.
Hey, Nick, when I was over there the other day, I borrowed it. Sorry, I'll have to bring it back next time.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah. Look, I hate people who do that. Will you not use my gear?
Will you not touch my garbage? Hey, Nick, don't worry. I won't touch your junk anytime soon, ever.
That's good.
We all appreciate that.
Yeah. Especially Nick.
Why come microphone?
Oh, well, we'll just have to use last week's show.
You might have to restart.
I'm going to restart the hang.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for coming. So
all right.
long.
Bye.
Thanks for all the fish. Bye.
Right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Show's over.
End of the show.
Hey, that was great. Really, that was a great show.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Inspirational, to say the least.
Yeah.
He's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Try it again.
No.
Hey, Jeff, just
What?
let me know you want me to go mute.
What's that?
Just let me know when you want me to go mute.
Okay, I'll let you know when we start the show. Then we'll just add you in when you are at home with your
Tap your mic, Steph.
Yep.
Yep, that works.
You got it.
I did nothing.
I know. Standard. It's just the way audio works.
Absolutely nothing.
You're a doctor. We expect that of you. Ha ha.
It's kind of funny.
Got
Jeff,
your
'cause
number.
I was thinking about you last night.
Who, me or Nick?
No, Jeff.
Oh,
Oh, thank you. I was thinking about you
None
too.
of us.
Well, I won't tell you in various states of what point I was thinking of you. But I was actually watching the NFL. They have the Super Bowl opening night where they do all the interviews with players. And so they were having audio problems. So you know who I thought of? Here are the professionals.
Yeah.
They're having audio problems.
Oh yeah.
so it makes it all better for us.
So
We're
have
just
no
like-
issues whatsoever.
We're just like the pros. We have
You get
issues
that
as
right.
well.
Yeah, professionals, the whole lot of us.
Tonight will be a good example of how the regenerative effects of IPA. Because at the moment, I feel like something that I picked up on the bottom of my shoe. And after a few IPAs,
Is that what I need to, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you need.
Do you have
to.
that stuff?
I have to go retrieve one.
Okay, go get one.
Yeah, you need to get one.
Can't start until you
Preferably
do that.
more than one.
Well,
I need one too. Can I have one right now?
You have to wait. Oh, he froze. I'll be right back.
Okay. Let's see. I rearranged the order of the feedback. I don't know if you noticed that, Sir Nick.
No.
It's 1, 2, 3. Oh, should be 1, 2, 3, 16. I screwed it up. Let me readjust that here.
1, 2, 3, 16.
Yeah.
You invented a new way of counting, Jeff.
Yeah, well, it's because I want to make sure we get the ones that are good for Dr. Steph
All right, okay.
in before she leaves us.
I noticed we've got 2 A's.
Huh? Yeah, we have A1.
Now, which is first, A or A1?
A1.
Okay.
I quite literally just had a box go flying by my car.
A what?
A box.
A
A
box.
whole box. On the highway.
Cool.
There's got to be a joke there somewhere, but I can't think of it right now.
I can't think of anything that's G-rated to say.
Yeah.
What do you guys call when you put a protector down in your shorts if you're playing contact sports?
A
Cup.
jockstrap?
No,
No, it
No,
goes
cup.
inside your jockstrap.
a cup.
Oh, a
Cup.
cup.
Oh,
Yeah,
a
it's a cup.
cup.
Yeah.
Okay, we call it a box.
Ah.
So that's what was going through my head. I think.
Well,
gotta
we
be a joke.
call
joke.
something else a box.
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you call a box. I've
Do
been
you?
to the States often enough
Okay.
to have come across that. Oh, I didn't mean to say that.
Oh, poor choice of words there.
What were you saying about G-rated on this program?
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me
To
see.
have encountered that phrase
family show,
a few
ladies and
times.
gentlemen. Family show.
There we go.
It's a family show. Family show. Ladies.
Yes. Why is my face always so red?
You're embarrassed
Well,
to be with
No,
us again?
yeah,
You had to,
that must be it.
you had a beard, didn't you?
Yeah, but I think it has more to do with the fact that the video setting is messed up, the white balance. So let me.
That's more red.
A little more
Is
blue,
it?
you want?
Well, that's because I just turned off the auto setting, so it kind of goes crazy. I don't want to
You
make
just
it too
look healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy.
You don't look like you're in a freezer.
Okay,
Jeff, my moonlight.
is that better?
No.
It'll do.
It was
right.
fine before.
Okay, I'll just hit auto. Oh,
It
that
would be
didn't
dangerous
change.
for me to really look.
Hey, where am I? Just blanked out.
You're there. I see you.
Okay.
You're there. I see you.
All right. So everybody, hello, everybody in the chat room. We just to point out, we did start the video before 5 o'clock. Yes, I know we haven't started recording the show yet, but we will very soon. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit my recorder. And I know Dana,
The
you
one day I
can't.
need you to be a little late. Damn it.
Huh?
I said the one day I need you to be a little late. Damn it.
He's cursing again. Listen to him curse. He's a curser.
Was it traffic bad or something?
I'm cursed.
Okay. So the three of us that are in our studio, let's go ahead and start the recorders and do our clap. Do the clap.
I'm going, sir. I'm
You
going.
got the clap.
Yeah. All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Never
why that's
ceases
so
to
funny.
amuse
Not
Jeff.
even close.
It's just all over the place.
I did my thing when I saw him visually clap his hands, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that lined up at all with.
Oh, that's a
when
good point, actually. Perhaps that's what we should do rather than listen to your count. Although,
Let's
to be
watch.
fair, the visual and Jeff's audio should be synced.
Yes, should be.
Should be. Yeah.
Otherwise, he'd be speaking without moving his mouth.
So I tweak the lineup of everything, when I'm doing the editing, and it usually works out. When you listen to it, it sounds like it's in syncopation. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. So we got that going. I have hotel Wi-Fi. It is a little bit after 5 o'clock here in the hotel, so who knows what's going to happen. If it starts getting bad, let me know, and then I'll do the phone hotspot.
Sure.
And see if that helps. Okay, let me do a sound check. Oh, that's not it. Gotta go to another page here. There we go.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Sound okay?
Sounds fine.
Okay, let me go over here to this and get our script. Okay.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 360.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 505 in the Hyatt Regency, Indianapolis. Today's show was recorded on the 29th of January, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, the U.S. government shutdown ends. Yay! More drone-induced disruptions. A Russian bomber crashes. More news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale, 34 seconds to touchdown. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 360 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we cover aviation news and answer your feedback. And joining me today from her lakeside studio in South Carolina, a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot, our favorite backstabber, Dr. Steph.
That is me. I will gladly have that title. And can I just say, is it really only Tuesday?
It's only Tuesday. Again.
More IPA.
Uh-oh. Bad week. We'll have to hear more about that in a moment. But in the meantime, let's introduce contestant number 2 from his home recording studio in the English countryside. He's a professional photographer, former RAAF fighter pilot, current captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. RAAA. That's 3 A's. That's good. I shall tell them that. They got it wrong. Lovely to be back on the show again. Looking forward to going round in circles on 360. Whee!
Oh, very clever. And joining us from his mobile, and when I say mobile recording studio, I mean he's like in his vehicle right now for the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from him. If not, we'll hear from him when he does arrive soon. But this man is a barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper. He's an underwater photographer, and last but certainly not least, a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. It's Captain Dana.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm feeling like I'm going around in circles and circles, delayed pilot that I am, and I'll be joining everybody here live.
Okay, we can't hear you at all. We kind of hear, we know you're talking, but we couldn't, I don't know. Did you guys hear him at all?
It sounds like he's in a vehicle.
He's in a
speaking
vehicle.
And speaking.
He's on the way home from his trip, and his dedication is endless. And we're going to hear from Dana when he arrives home, but I just wanted to get that in at the very beginning here. So just a little teaser. And I was going to have a chair over here. You probably can't see it in the video. All set up. And I had this, this microphone here because I was expecting a special guest host for today's show. Yes, I'm still continuing to interview potential new hosts.
That looks like a nice Sennheiser. How do you pronounce that?
Sennheiser.
Sennheiser.
No, actually a Shure Beta 50.
Oh, the Beta 58.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Low handling.
He would have liked.
It's going to sound really good. Here, this is what it would sound like if you were here. Okay, now I'm talking on the Beta 58.
Well, that's even nicer than your usual mic.
I turned you down. I'm sorry. Now. This is just
even nicer than your usual mic.
Really?
Well, it's got a different quality to it. That's
maybe I should use this one instead of the Heil. Okay, here is the Beta, and now I'm going to do the Heil. Here's the Heil.
No, the Heil sounds a little more natural.
Okay.
Sounds more like you.
So I got an email from Steve, Louisiana Steve. We know him in the APG community. I met him in person at Oshkosh, not last year, but the year before. And he was he's about to start his training at an ab initio program for Republic Airlines, another mid-career or mid-life career change in our community. And he's on the road right now, but he wrote me and said that he wasn't going to be able to make it for the show because he had a flat tire. And I don't know, it's kind of an uncommon thing to have issues with tires, right? I think we're going to hear we're going to hear more about tire issues from Dana once he arrives at his home studio. But anyway, so Louisiana Steve, I know you're listening to this. I'm sorry that you weren't able to join us on today's show because I was really interested in asking you some questions about this ab initio program that you're about to start in just a few days here in Indianapolis. But anyway, so I guess we're just going to have to do it without Steve. But anyway, so how is everybody? Good? Yes?
Good. Sorry, had to reach over to get the...
I had to make sure. I looked down and said, oh, I wonder if I have your slider up.
You just heard crickets there.
She's just fighting the dogs.
I am at the moment.
Dogs?
The dogs, plural.
Dogs.
So, yeah, dogs? What do you mean? What's going on there, Steph?
Well, I added a four-legged furry friend to the family this past weekend. A friend for Taco. And as you can see, Taco is currently sitting on my lap because he's in charge. And,
is there any jealousy issues with the new
minor?
Oh, just got a glimpse of him around the back of your chair.
Yeah, the other one is difficult to corral at the moment. He's 5 months old, and his name is Truman. I don't know if you can see him past me. He's right here, past the microphone.
I can see him.
Yeah. Anyway, sort of. He might have some beagle in him, maybe. Not really sure. He's a little bit taller than Taco, weighs about the same. He's kind of all legs right now, kind of lanky. Lots of energy, but very well behaved. Potty house trained for the most part. Yeah.
Bonus.
And he and Taco do get along. They do play, except for when Taco's feeling slightly territorial, like when he's on my lap.
Yeah.
Right now.
So how is the sleeping arrangement going?
So for the past 2 nights, it's been me in my bed, one dog on my right and one dog on my left, and I can't move because they both have to be smashed up right against me.
So they're the bread and you're the meat of the sandwich.
Interesting analogy, but yes.
Sorry, that's not inappropriate. I didn't intend to.
No. Yes.
They're the crackers and you're the cheese.
Yes. That's any way you want to look at it. But
you're the fuselage. They're the wings.
There you go.
We could keep going all night.
I like the aviation analogy.
Yeah, I like that too.
Works very well. Well, at some point, for those of you watching the video, I will probably get Truman on my lap. He'll probably attempt to bulldoze over me across the chair here at some point because he's got a little bit of energy.
And he has no idea what's going on.
No idea. No clue.
Of course, we don't either. Really.
Well, Taco doesn't really either. So it's all good.
So how has your week been, Steph? You kind of hinted that feels like it's deeper into the week than just Tuesday.
It's been, so the weekend was great. Had a couple days off, obviously, did the stuff with getting the puppy, nice and relaxing, and then right back to the grind on Monday. Had a very long day yesterday, had a longer than expected and slightly more challenging day than expected today. I've got 3 more very long days ahead of me before I finally get to the weekend, which none of it sounds very fun, but I was texting with Jeff a little bit before we started the show saying I might excuse myself just a little bit early just to make sure I get enough sleep for the upcoming rest of the week because it involves meetings with administrators and stuff. I should probably be, just make sure I get enough sleep the next couple days. Hey guys.
That sounds like a great idea.
So, and then I have this upcoming weekend traveling to Folly Beach near Charleston with a friend of mine to run a half marathon. So another reason for getting lots of good quality sleep this week, hopefully. So we shall see.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to hear how you do with the half marathon. I'm sure you'll do.
Yeah, it's meant as a tune-up race for my upcoming full marathon in Tokyo in March.
Ah, yes. Okay, cool.
So we'll see.
All right. So, Nick, how have you been, sir? I guess you just returned from a trip to the States?
Yeah, got in earlier today. That's been really the only thing I've done since the show, other than just a bit of work. And the trip out to Washington was just as long as you could and dreary as you could imagine. 8 hours 33, I think the flight time was. We went up to say hello to Greenland on our way to Washington. So I'm going, oh my Lord, the winds over the Atlantic must be very strong west to east. And having had a night in Washington and climbed on board, it did in fact turn out to be that way. So 8 hours 33 coming out, 6 hours and 8 minutes going home. So that's the difference that the jet streams over the Atlantic can make to your flight time. In fact, as it turned out, of course, everybody from the East Coast was arriving at Heathrow at about the same time, because everyone had short flight times, and the jet band finishes at 6 a.m. So everyone was planning to arrive just after 6, and we were in that mob. We messed about with our speed. Obviously, got some shortcuts. Usually cuts a few minutes off. So we were going to get in just after 6, which I thought was perfect. But of course, all the Far East traffic arrives around the same time. And it was just, everyone and his dog was lined up trying to get in. So we joined the hold at, I think, 12,000 feet, which is, it takes a while to get your turn to go in. Then there are 4 holds around. So, you think, oh, there's only 4 aircraft in my hold. No, there's another 5, and then another 4, and then another however many. So it takes a while. And we were, having been slowed up over Ireland, we then spent 20 minutes in the hold. And so we got in still early for schedule, but added an extra half an hour into our flight time, which was a bit of a pain.
What about all your connections up in Heathrow Tower? I mean, apparently,
sadly, Tower doesn't control that stuff. It's the lovely folk down at Swanwick, and I don't know how many listeners we've got down at Swanwick.
We need to make some friends.
Yes, you need to get some connections.
I definitely know. I need the Heathrow directors to all start listening to the show, and I'll be singing their praises when they let me straight in. That'd be brilliant. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I mean, surely they could arrange that. You've only got how many more days?
Yeah, I've only got 3 months.
It's not that many more flights.
No, it's not.
They could be nice, and
another half dozen flights, perhaps. That might be.
Give the man a break. Come on,
right? A nice way to send you off at the end of your career.
Exactly right. Yeah, but Washington was due to snow just after I left, which was good timing, and the UK was going to receive some snow just after I arrived. So that, for me, the timing was perfect. And when I eventually drove and got home, I had a little package waiting. I don't know if you remember, one of my oddball flights was to pick up a whitetail A340-600, which had just come out of mothballs, and fly it up to Manchester, where they were going to repaint it. And when it came out with a special Virgin. Oh God, you see, that just shows how tired I am. Got your bleeper.
It's never happened to Jeff before either. Don't worry.
No, do you mean like an uninitiated airplane?
Yeah, it was a whitetail. When it came out, it came in with an airline logo on the side, and they printed a special one. So it was a big thank you from this airline. It was written on the side, and I thought, oh, that's great. And then someone, Gemini, started making models of it, and by the time I found out about it, most of them had been sold. So I bought one off eBay from a private seller, and when it arrived, I thought, oh, great, it's my model. And I opened it up, and there's all the logo on this one side had been all smudged red and looked a complete mess. So I thought, that's disappointing. But already I know, already been in touch with the the guy who said, "Oh, I've got a pristine one. I'll send it down, and when it arrives, and if you're happy, you send me the old one back." So that hopefully will be cured. But basically, today is for me and for everyone a lesson in jet lag, because having landed at 7 something this morning, I've slept a lot of the day, got up, and now I've got to try and get through the rest of the day, go back to bed. Tomorrow I might be feeling vaguely human, but tonight I'm just a completely fatigued, jet lagged mess. So I apologize in advance. IPA is the cure.
Yes. And I think I can speak for the entire community and let you know that we do appreciate the fact that you're here with us after all of that.
I wouldn't miss it for the world. You know that.
Awesome. You know what? I saw a photo on Facebook that somebody took of an A340-600 taking off at Heathrow, and you can actually see your beautiful mug.
I saw that too.
Yes, that was the lovely Mike, who's one of the airfield operations drivers personnel. So he's the guy with the ping pong bats, and he's the guy that rushes around and sorts out problems that occur on the airfield. Whether it's as menial as picking up litter or as important as escorting big convoys around. These are the guys that do all those kind of airport operations jobs. And shout out for Mike, because he drives Leader 8 around the airport when he's on shift. So I think there are 2 or 3 shifts a day. So not every time you see Leader 8. And that's the big yellow 4x4 that's got an 8 on the bonnet. Mike will often be in there. Hi, Mike. I spent a day with him photographing aircraft. We've communicated ever since. I'm going to try and spend another day with him because it's great fun. And he kindly, when he knew I was getting airborne one day, sidled up beside the runway and took a photograph of me. And it's one of my most treasured photographs, actually, because I just got airborne in a 600, and you can clearly see us on the flight deck, and it's rather nice.
Yeah, I would love to have a photo like that of me in the cockpit of some airplane that I'm flying.
If only we knew a photographer or two.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll need to stake one out somewhere.
You can
with a good
invite me
point.
over. Exactly right. Invite me over to Atlanta one day.
Okay. Well, here's your invitation. I'm doing it on air. Nick, come on over to Atlanta.
Thanks very much. Now I just need to get onto the airfield beside the runway with my camera. That shouldn't be easy to
no
fix that. No hassle.
We don't have security.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you for staying up late for us. And let's see. We're going to hear from Dana when he arrives in the studio. We're looking at the video here at Dana. Looks like he's still in traffic. Looks like he's putting up his hand against his neck.
I think he might
like
be
he's
choking.
Like he's trying to choke
the universal
himself.
sign for choking.
Sometimes Atlanta traffic can make you feel like choking yourself and just ending it all.
Yeah, just put me out of my misery.
At least it's only a Monday, though. Although
a Monday.
Wait, no.
Didn't
Tuesday,
you tell me it was Tuesday?
No, it's Tuesday.
Please,
I'm sorry.
Please don't take me back to Monday.
Feels like Monday.
This week should not be any longer than it already is.
So, Atlanta was supposed to get Snowmageddon again, like this. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's going to be a big deal. And sure enough, I think it turned into a big old nothing burger. I don't know. Maybe Dana can tell us the contrary. But looks like Dana is actually home. Okay, good. So we'll be hearing from him in his home studio shortly. But I left this morning from Atlanta, a 4-day trip, just one leg. It was a tough day. From Atlanta to Indianapolis, but I got out of there. I'm thinking I need to get out of here before all this tremendous amount of snow and just terrible things happen here. I'm not sure that that there was any snow at all in Atlanta, but if there was, it was very little. And anyway, so I've been up here in Indianapolis. 3 more days to go. Greenville, Spartanburg tomorrow. And Louisville, Kentucky on Thursday, and then one leg home on Friday. If you want to check out our schedules, you can go over to airlinepilotguy.com/calendar, and then you can see the APG community calendar there, along with upcoming meetups. Speaking of meetups, I had a private meetup with my very good friend and very, very long time listener, and I'd say probably one of the first fans of the well, actually it was the Catholic pilot days when I started podcasting, and then transitioned to the Airline Pilot Guy. And Colonel Jeff, yes, the good-looking Captain Jeff, had a layover in Atlanta on Sunday, and no, wait, it was Saturday. Never mind, Saturday. And so he contacted me and said, "Hey, are you going to be available on Saturday afternoon to get together and have some beer and dinner?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." And then it wasn't long after that I was looking at my calendar and went, "Oh, wait a minute. I am now singing in a couple of ensembles, one on Saturday afternoon and one on Sunday about midday." And I said, "Oh, crap, I forgot. I have to sing at the Vigil Mass on Saturday." And, well, Jeff is the good-looking Captain Jeff is also Catholic. And I said, "Hey, how would you like to attend Mass at my church? And then afterwards we can go and have some beer and dinner and all that kind of stuff." And he goes, "That'd be great." So I drove down to the airport, picked up Colonel Jeff, and we drove up to the north side of town where I live, and we went to the Mass and the rehearsal before Mass, and then Mass itself. And he sat up there with me in the balcony, and it was great. It was a good time. I'm glad that we got to share that together. And then afterwards, we went over to one of my favorite seafood restaurants in the Roswell area called Hugo's Oyster House, I think they call it. And we had some great oyster appetizers and great seafood entrees and maybe a beer or two. And then I drove him back down to the airport, and he got a good night's sleep before he headed out the next morning. So Jeff, great time. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, I forgot to take any pictures or record any audio or whatever, but it was still a good time. So that was the weekend. And then on Sunday, I ended up picking up just a quick trip to Myrtle Beach and back, just a turnaround. And I was off on yesterday, and now back out on my trip. So that's pretty much what's been happening with me since the last recording last Tuesday.
Talking about meetups, Jeff.
Yes.
I just realized I remembered that my next trip is going to be into New York, and it's going to be the night of the Soup Bowl. So I'm going to have some nice soup.
Nick, it's Super Bowl, not soup. Soup bowl.
Not soup or
sure.
Bowl. Soup or bowl.
Oh. Okay. I was gonna have some nice tomato soup to celebrate.
You can still do that.
Yeah, you can still do that. We're not knocking the idea. It's just
okay.
There will also be
I like soup too.
A football game.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's the 3rd, and I'm meeting some folks. I know there are going to be a couple there at least at the Beer Authority in Manhattan, near the bus station. 6-ish, 5:30, probably 5:30 on the 3rd. So anyone's around, welcome to join us.
Okay.
Fantastic. Hey, were we talking about meetups real quick? Or
yeah?
Sorry, I had to step away after I sung the praises of Truman's house trained ability. I turned around to catch him in the act.
Truman.
And, there had to be a little bit of
You were
a learning opportunity there, and then a
cleanup. There
was a bit of a learning opportunity there for Truman, and then a cleanup moment for me. So sorry about that. I'm not sure what I missed, but it probably wasn't too important.
No.
Anyway, meetups.
Yeah.
February 13th. I'm going to be in the Salt Lake City area, and I arrive rather early-ish in the day. I've already spoken briefly on Slack with Brian Parrott, who is in our chat room right now, about organizing a meetup. Have not decided on a specific place or exact time as of yet. But depending on whatever works out best, somewhere either in Salt Lake City or Park City. Oh, sorry. It's going to be a
Okay.
challenging show
Is that
for
Truman?
me. Well, no, it was Taco first. Taco's barking, I think,
Ah.
at the deer, and then Truman heard it and went running to go join the course. So anyway, February 13th, it's a Wednesday, probably around 5:00 ish, somewhere near Salt Lake City. I'll arrange some more details and let you know of them when I know them.
And where would we go, Steph, to find out more details
Ooh,
about?
you can head on over to Slack.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure what Slack is, or if you're not yet a member of our Slack team, stay tuned to the end of the show, and Hillel will give you all the details you ever would want or need about how to become a member.
And we're also on Twitter and Facebook, so we can always put things there
Indeed.
as well.
Indeed.
And on the website, airlinepilotguy.com/calendar, you can see all these nifty meetups on the calendar. That is if we put them on there, but I'm sure we will. Speaking of that, we do have a meetup coming very, very soon at the end of this week on Friday. Hopefully, I'll have this published on Friday. So if you're listening to this and you happen to be in the Atlanta area, well, get in your car right now and go and meet up with us. I'm not sure where we're going to be yet, though. We're going to be somewhere in the Atlanta area on Friday evening, probably around 6:30. Robert Fairbairn, Dick, Richard, Robert is going to be in town. And so we thought that was a good excuse to have a meetup. And again, not sure exactly the venue or the time, but it's probably going to be around 6:30. But please follow us on APG Crew and Airline Pilot Guy on Facebook and join the Slack team. And finally, just check that APG community calendar every single day so you don't miss anything. So looking forward to that. Also in February, we have after Dr. Steph's meetup in the Salt Lake City / Park City area, we're going to have a meetup at the Atlanta International Airport at the Delta Flight Museum, Hops in the Hangar. And if you haven't already purchased your tickets, well, I have some bad news. They're sold out. So hopefully you were able to buy some tickets and you'll get to hang out with the rest of us on the 23rd, Saturday, the 23rd of February. Okay. That is all I have. Anything else from anybody else in the crew as far as meetups or, oh wait, let's talk with Dana. It looks like Dana is all set to tell us about what he's been up to.
Hi, Dana.
Hey guys. Yes, I've made it home safely. I made it through the perilous traffic in the Atlanta area. Actually, no traffic this evening.
That was pretty quick.
Yeah,
actually.
It's only a 30-minute drive from time I step into my car until time or truck, I should say. Although the car does sound better with my accent until the time I pull into my garage in my driveway. And yeah, made it home pretty quick. Shouldn't have been home this late. But
well, why did you get home late, Dana?
Well, why don't I just start with the beginning of the trip?
Okay.
My word. So, yeah, I had a round trip up to St. Louis and back, and uneventful, but shortly after takeoff, climbing out of St. Louis, we get the obnoxious ding and look down, and there's a message, reroute, and I was like, oh, no, come on, really? We only have 50 minutes in Atlanta to head to Charleston, which you've probably heard us talk about before. Is quite a nice layover. They had about almost 13 hours there, playing a nice dinner and maybe an adult beverage. Only because it's not a long layover, so I'd only have one on King Street there in Charleston. Nice places to eat. And nope. Now we've been rerouted, and we look at the reroute, and I'm just absolutely flabbergasted because it's a deadhead, which everybody knows I love to do, not deadhead up to Detroit for a very short layover of just about 11 hours, and then fly one leg to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, and then double deadhead from Philadelphia down to Little Rock.
Pardon me, I'm getting all choked up thinking about it. So, yeah. So we go from no deadheads on a 3-day trip to 3 deadheads, and yeah, not my favorite thing to do in the first place. Made it through there, made it to Little Rock, and spent a very nice afternoon, evening. Even though we got there late, we still had about 14 hours on the ground. Then we were sitting there at a restaurant having dinner, and lo and behold, get the obnoxious call from crew scheduling, because I have that ring on my phone. It goes, It sounds like an alarm, just so I know exactly who's calling me when they're calling me. I looked at it and said, no, I'm not answering that right now. Sorry. Went ahead and looked at my schedule, and the morning flight, in preparation for the massive snowmageddon that we were having here in the Atlanta area, they had decided to go ahead and cancel that flight in the morning, which I didn't really complain about, because, well, instead of me missing the show this evening completely with a round trip up to Chicago with a 3-hour airport appreciation sit. I was going to say something else, but that I'm glad it didn't slip out. 3-hour airport appreciation sit, which last time I got to spend with Steve Ivy was going to be a 3-hour sit in Chicago for waiting on the last trip home, which I wasn't really brokenhearted about getting rid of. However, get to the airport, and my very astute first officer did a very good walk around, came back up. Boss, take a look at this photo, and there's a picture of a gouge in the side of the tire. Now, of course, everybody knows if they hit their tire against a curb, lose a little bit of rubber on the sidewall, and yeah, no big deal. So I looked at it, I said, yeah, all right, well, what do you think? And he said, yeah, I feel more comfortable if we called maintenance. Okay, well, I call maintenance control. We send them a picture. They send maintenance out. All right, how long does it normally take to change tire, Jeff?
Usually only about 15 minutes or so.
15 to 30 minutes, worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 hours later, and I'm still talking to maintenance control to get these guys to go ahead, and I have Beavis and Butthead or Tweedledee and Tweedledum out there on the ramp changing this tire. They had to go back to their shop 5 times just to get tools. 5 times. If you never changed a tire before in your life, really, 5 times, what should take 30 minutes in an outstation, that they don't, need to do things a little more methodical, and they don't do it all the time. 5 times. It took over 2 hours. Made a liar out of me, made a liar out of my company, and it was unbelievable. So, you know what? Hats off to them finally getting it done, but they were not our, normal maintenance crew, their contract. So I kind of got to the point that I explained that to the passengers and said, hey, they're going to get it done safely. I'm not taking the aircraft unsafe. But the whole entire 2 hours I spent communicating with them as much as I possibly could, and joking, of course, made a few jokes and put everybody at ease. And by the time we got to Atlanta, everybody was thankful and very relaxed. So that's really a success in its own right. However, very frustrating, because I knew I wanted to be home in time for this show. But fortunately, I'm here.
Yeah, you got home, and we're still in the intro portion of the show. So
Woohoo.
job well done, Dana.
Made it. Now the important part, even though I'm still in part of my, well, I actually took the epaulets off, and so I'm really not in uniform anymore. I can have a drink. Yay.
Yeah, please do.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and
Cheers. I think we all needed this today.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
a Sierra
Subway?
Nevada celebration. Yeah, well, that's all I have right now.
I have this is my penultimate celebration.
Oh, very nice.
Mine's empty. We need the coffee bar fund
Coffee
music,
thing.
so I can get another one.
So
Is that one of the
thing-
beers that I was supposed to be drinking?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
One other
Mix
thing,
or
I
wine?
do start a 3-day tomorrow, so I got to be up early tomorrow morning.
Ah, okay.
So my wife has graciously said it's okay for me to be on the podcast. My friends.
Oh, very nice. Please
On
tell
my-
Julie. Thank you very much.
I absolutely will. So
Okay. Excellent.
we haven't
Okay.
fun yet.
Any meetups planned for this coming up trip, Dana?
I've got 2 very short-ish layovers. I haven't seen anything on Slack, any notifications. I've got 2 Philly overnights. Both one is
Kinda short,
Yeah, one's about 12 and a half hours when I'm downtown. The other one is 10 hours, so deadhead home, which of course I'm going to deviate and probably go earlier because I want to be done earlier on Friday because there's something you guys were mentioning.
What's going on this weekend?
Well, you know, just this little event here in Atlanta with my favorite boys in the game. The soup or bowl.
Soup or bowl.
Nick, soup
Your
or
choice.
bowl, you know, or in a cup, you know, whichever way you prefer, Nick.
Cup of soup. Yeah, very nice.
Soup. Yeah. So
tomato, I think, right? Yeah.
So tell us, do you have tickets to the big game, or
I have been watching all week. The price keeps on fluctuating. It's a little bit on a downtrend, and I anticipate, as everybody's anticipating, that they will continue to trend downward a little bit. So I'll be able to afford a bit nicer seat. But the intention is, yes, we will be going on Sunday.
Oh, nice.
We went to the NFL Experience last Saturday, which is a National Football League. It gives you a chance to throw a football, kick a football, and do all types of different events. It's set up for a lot for the kids, but also adults. And that's when I realized my hand's not big enough to throw a football like Tom Brady can, or any football quarterback for that matter. And couldn't kick a field goal either. Got distance, but I just couldn't get under it. So, but I had a lot of fun with that. And then the Super Bowl this weekend is going to be party hardy Friday night. Still up in the air as to whether I'm joining or not, because there's a lot going on this weekend around the Super Bowl and haven't really gotten that far.
Wait, Dana, did you not get the memo? We're doing the meetup over at your place.
Oh,
Friday.
Darn it. Well, you said somewhere in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He narrowed it down right to your house.
If you say my house, I will absolutely 100% be here, because then when we're done with the meetup, I'll leave and go downtown.
No, I'm just kidding. We don't want to do that. We know you're busy with all of your Super Bowl madness. So we'll, as I said earlier, we'll figure out a place. We haven't nailed down the venue yet, but it'll be somewhere in the greater Atlanta area.
I'm certainly open to it, Jeff. I mean, it would be, honestly, would make it a lot easier or a lot more efficient for me to be able to do that, because then we could have a dinner here. We can cater it in, or I could cook something.
We'll call.
Yeah, we'll call. So anyways, we'll talk about that later, but we don't need to talk about that show. But hopefully you have a good showing of people, and I'm a little more centralized. If anybody wants to come from the south side, then trying to get to Alpharetta at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening on a Friday evening might be hellish.
Yeah. And going through downtown, probably not a good
idea. At least I'm around the perimeter, and that might actually be the best idea. Or somewhere in the Vinings / I do have a couple places that would be we'll talk about it.
Okay.
I've got a few ideas. So anyways.
All right. We'll talk. We still have a couple more days to figure this out. Okay. Great. So here's the last question I have for you, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world did you get home with all the snow all over the place?
My God, the snowmageddon, it you know what?
Did you see any snow at all?
I saw nothing but sunshine by the time I got back here.
It looked pretty sunny in your vehicle.
Not sure that there was any snow.
It might have been all the sun reflecting off of that snow that's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A big nothing burger, as I said earlier. Oh, well.
If we got it as wrong and as often that wrong as pilots, as meteorologists do, there'd be a lot of hurt people around, because they are just never even. Wow.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Oh, well. Well, I got out of town before Snowmageddon.
And
now it's just cold.
Nice, warm. Where are you?
Yeah, it's Indianapolis, and it's not as cold as I thought it was. I thought it was supposed to be like around, when we got in, it was about 10 degrees, but I think now it's up to 18. Maybe
heat wave.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not warm. I went over to the yard house before we started recording, just to do some research and show prep. And so they tell me how to get to there without actually going outside. You go through that crossover thing over to the mall, and then I'm looking at the directory at the mall going, okay, if I go right here, I can go out this door and then walk right across the street to the yard house. And so I think I'm doing what I had planned to do, and I walk out the door, and I'm on the opposite side of the building that I thought I was, and so I had to walk outside all the way around. By the time I finally got to the yard house, I was like very, very cold.
Well,
I mean, I
that-
don't have
Navigational skills.
Yeah, it was not didn't work
reckoning.
very well.
Didn't work
Yeah, I
out
got all
so
turned around.
Hey, Jeff,
Didn't have my
it
GPS.
would help if you had clothes on. You're not supposed to go walking around without clothes on.
Well, I had some, but just not enough.
Yeah,
apparently.
BVDs. Yeah.
Anyway, so but I the first thing I did when I sat down is I said, "Would you please tell me how I can get back to my hotel without going outside?" And they said, "Well, you just have to go outside for a brief period of time. You go over here and you go up the escalator and you go inside the mall and you can stay." I went, "Okay, thank you." So I figured it out finally.
And by the time you're done drinking your couple of study materials that
Mhm.
they say drinking, I mean, study materials, you probably were having problems navigating home and didn't feel the cold anyway.
No,
So it's a
I didn't
difference.
feel the cold at all.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
who cares?
All right. Well, anything else that we should talk about before we move on to the coffee fund?
And do you do your walk arounds when your FOs and it's that cold for your FOs?
I usually do. I've been out there when like I talked about, I think on the last show, where I went out there and in Baltimore, and I realized it was a very big mistake for me to do that because I really did think I was going to get some frostbite on my ears, but I didn't. But yeah, I do.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Coffee fun. I'm going to get a drink. Bye bye.
All right. Okay. Why is it not playing? Try this.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Yes, the Coffee Fund at the APG. That's your way to support us financially if you have the resources to do so. And you can learn about the two different ways to do it, the Coffee Fund Classic method and the patronage method via Patreon. You can become a patron of the show. Since the last episode, we don't have any one-time donors via the classic method. We do have some recurring payments, though, from Vigner, Jason, Steve, Alistair, and Stephen. And the Patreon method, where you can pledge a certain amount per show. We do have a new producer, Jay McClintock. Thank you very much for joining the patrons on Patreon and becoming part of the Coffee Fund cadre, Jay. If you want to join Jay and all the others, please go over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee, where you'll learn about the ways you can do it, become part of our Coffee Fund, and listen to those great crew logs when we put them out there. You'll be happy you did, and we will as well.
Stand by for news.
Ivor, I'm watching what you're saying there in the chat room. Now, come on. You know that's not true. All right, let's start.
That's a terrible person. Yes, that's definitely not true. That's pretty wrong. How could you say that?
Let's start with the first item in our news folder and a little bit of audio feedback. Take it away, Roger.
The president announced the end of the partial government shutdown just hours after the FAA imposed a full ground stop at New York's LaGuardia Airport because of a shortage of air traffic controllers. There were also delays at Newark's Liberty Airport in New Jersey. It was the first real indication of what lawmakers and White House officials had feared, a crippling of the air transportation system. Earlier in the week, the associations representing controllers, airline pilots, and flight attendants released a joint statement warning that they cannot even calculate the level of risk currently at play, nor predict the point at which the entire system will break. After the shutdown ended, Miracle on the Hudson Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger echoed that warning about controllers during an appearance on MSNBC's The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell.
When they're distracted during the shutdown and they're worrying about paying their rent and not the 100% focus they have to have every single time, then they begin to make mistakes that they usually don't make. And they wonder, why am I doing that? And it's because of this unnecessary shutdown.
Sully also warning that the air traffic controller shortage will continue post-shutdown because the FAA Academy that trains controllers was closed, so there are no new personnel to fill vacancies. Radio Roger, APG News.
Thank you, Radio Roger, for that. And yeah, we're all happy the government is open, at least temporarily. And hopefully...
Brilliant. I didn't know
I like the APG News.
Yeah,
I
our
know.
own news channel. This is very
we're
cool.
getting big time now.
I like that. Yeah, it's
That's
brilliant.
a real radio announcer. That's cool. Thank you, Roger, for doing that for us.
Absolutely.
We look forward to more now. See what you've gotten yourself
Yeah,
into.
that's it.
You can't just
Each
start
week.
something like that.
No. What is Truman licking?
You know what? It's best not to ask those questions.
Well,
Okay.
Just moving on. Nothing to see in the background here. Nothing to see.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
yes. Thank you, Matt. All right. Item A, Newark Airport traffic is briefly halted after a drone was spotted. So I guess I should have played this. Sorry. Hair dryer sound effect. All flights bound for Newark Liberty International Airport were halted on Tuesday evening after two pilots reported seeing a drone flying nearby, the Federal Aviation Administration said. The drone was spotted about 3,500 feet over Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, a small airport about 17 miles north of Newark Liberty that handles private planes. After the sightings, takeoffs from Newark were halted and inbound planes were held in the air. By 5:45 p.m., planes had resumed landing at Newark, but planes headed for the airport from other cities were blocked from taking off. Newark is one of the three main airports serving New York City and the surrounding region. Brett Sosnick, a passenger on a flight headed for Newark, said his plane was forced to circle out over southern New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania during the halt in arrivals. He said the pilot said that they were circling due to drone activity. The pilot of an inbound United flight from New Orleans that was due to land at Newark around 6 p.m. said the plane had circled for about 20 minutes because of the drone activity before diverting to Philadelphia to refuel. At 6:20 p.m., he said he expected to continue on to Newark soon. Anyway, so it looks like here's another story from Bloomberg. Drone causes ground stop at Newark Airport. The pilot on the United Airlines flight nearing Newark Liberty International Airport was given plenty of warning by air traffic control that a drone was in the vicinity. Still, he sounded stunned at what he saw. Quote, "We missed the drone by about 30 feet off our right wing," the pilot radioed, stifling an incredulous chortle. The United crew's report was the second sighting within minutes, and that was all it took for controllers to halt arrivals at one of the New York area's busiest airports, triggering hours of delays. More than 40 flights headed to Newark were disrupted as the airport temporarily shut down arrivals Tuesday after the report from the United pilot. Anyway.
I'm just curious. What does an incredulous chortle sound like?
I don't know. We don't have the audio of that.
Damn,
I'm sure we could probably go back and find it. Maybe.
Yeah,
if someone would like to find it for us.
Live ATC.
I definitely want the incredulous chortle. Just perfect.
You know, normally I would search for that and play it, but apparently I didn't.
You were supposed to be doing that while you were doing your show prep earlier today.
And I got distracted.
I see.
Yeah. Anyway, so those pesky drones aren't just causing havoc at Heathrow and Gatwick, but they're also causing havoc now over here. And I don't think that it's going to get any better anytime soon.
No, I think this is just a series of copycats, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the more that it happens, the more some foolish people are going to think that it's, oh, that's a bit of a joke. We'll try that. Hopefully, they'll catch a few of them and bang them up for a year or two, and then the trend will disappear. But I suspect we're going to get more of these rather than less.
Well, you know, the drones are not the only thing that cause disruptions at airports. Apparently, there was a tweet that shut down the world's busiest airport, Atlanta International. A heavy police presence was seen at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport on Wednesday evening, the evening that my daughter was returning from Charlotte to Atlanta. Her flight was affected by this. At least one aircraft, a Delta Flight 2234, was evacuated. One Twitter user sent out a message wondering what's going on at the Atlanta airport. All planes grounded. Police cars are surrounding this Delta flight into Atlanta. After inspecting an aircraft that was leaving Atlanta to go to Austin, Texas, police gave the all clear. An explosive team was in the plane investigating the threat. And that's according to circa.com and WXGA. And I think that Delta Airlines, from inside sources, tell us that they thought that the tweet was not a serious one, but the FBI had a different feeling about it, and so they treated this as a credible threat. And it turns out that it was nothing. Anyway.
Well, it's one of those better safe than sorry scenarios.
No,
right?
I don't think so.
No.
Better sorry than safe,
But
I say.
better sorry than safe. Yes.
Well,
I think
I
we all
mean,
feel the same way.
They are usually assessment teams that look at threats and decide whether they are credible and how much reaction is needed. And it's a very important and difficult job, because if you get it wrong, obviously it could involve loss of life at the worst. But you can't take every threat and react to it in this way, because otherwise no one would ever get airborne, because I suspect there are an awful lot more that actually occur than we ever hear about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Good point. Moving on to item C. Did you guys look at this video? This Russian bomber that crashed?
I didn't
Yes,
find the
I
video.
did see it.
No.
I did watch it.
Oh my
It's-
goodness! You got to do a
crazy.
search
Yeah.
for this, Captain Nick. You'll be
Terrible.
It's awful.
flabbergasted.
But at the same
Okay.
time, just
Yeah, just do a search. Google it right now while I'm talking. Russia
Okay.
Air Force Tu-22.
Yep.
A Russian Air Force Tu-22 M3 supersonic bomber crashed at Olengorsk Air Base in the Murmansk region shortly after 1:30 local time in the afternoon on January 22nd. According to the first reports, the aircraft was attempting to recover at its home base in bad weather after a training sortie when it performed a hard landing. Yeah, that's an understatement. Of the 4 crew members, 2 were injured and were transported to a medical facility to receive assistance, whereas 2 were killed. And I think actually it's 3 were killed and 1 survived in critical condition right now. The Russian Ministry of Defense said in a public release that the Tu-22 mission was carried out without weapons, although I did see some news reports that they thought that they did have some weapons on board, but I'm not sure. The Russian Tupolev Tu-22 M3 is an updated variant of the Cold War era Tu-22 Binder, a twin-engine supersonic bomber with variable geometry swept wings. The Tu-22 M3 and M3M variants are in wide service in Russia, with over 80 reported in flying with the Russian Air Force and more than 40 in use with Russian naval aviation as long-range maritime patrol, surveillance, and attack aircraft. Indeed, the aircraft was primarily developed as an anti-ship missile carrier for the Soviet-Russian supersonic Kh-22/32 anti-ship missiles with range of, or missiles if you prefer, with range of up to 1,000 kilometers, 621 miles, as well as for the smaller Kh-15 missiles with a range of up to 300 kilometers, which is 160 miles. Anyway, so you need to watch the video that we'll have in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen, because Nick, have you had a chance now to view it?
I've just watched the front end of the aircraft break off and buckle under. What an unbelievable sight. It didn't look like it was that heavy a landing. It didn't look
No.
like he completely mishandled it. It looked like the
It looked like it
airframe
was
just broke
firm.
up.
Yeah, just as soon as the main gear touched down, the front half of the jet just kept on going and
Yeah,
went right
absolutely. Yeah, terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow,
Horrible.
that's yeah, not good at all.
I'm not sure we'll ever know exactly what happened there, but not that
Nope.
that's not something that the Russian military is going to provide for the public as far as accident reports. But wow,
No, I don't think they're new airplanes by any means.
no,
No.
not at all.
Cold War era? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Well, they were flying when I was on the F4, so yeah, that's quite some
Did you
time ago.
ever intercept a binder?
They never came around our way. I'm not actually familiar with the codename Binder. Blinder I am, and Backfire, but I'm going to have to look it up now and see.
Oh, I just assumed it was like a NATO designation for that.
It almost certainly is. I'm
maybe
just
it was
wondering.
Blinder. Maybe they just got it wrong.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, they're about the same age as our B-52s, aren't they?
Yeah. The T-22M is a Backfire. So
Okay.
it's the swing wing one, big supersonic bomber, big machine with swing wings. The Blinder had a pair of engines mounted at the base of the fin, a pair, which looked like a pair of binoculars. So I always used to think if you try to use those as binoculars when the engines were going, you'd be blinded. So that's why I called it a Blinder. But this was the Backfire.
Okay. Well, please do, dear listener, look at that video because it's pretty impressive in a negative way.
Oh, absolutely.
Item D, a Transat A321 at Quebec City on the 24th of January was getting ready to perform Flight 782 from Quebec City to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with about 185 people on board. The aircraft was being de-iced when a large number of passengers began to complain about feeling ill. The de-icing was stopped and the passengers disembarked back into the terminal. Local hospitals called Code Orange for a large influx of patients. At least 11 passengers were taken to hospitals. The airport reported the passengers suffered from itchy eyes, dizziness, and a number vomited. 11 were taken to hospitals. Their condition was not known to the airport. Emergency services took measurements of the cabin air immediately after being called on scene and found no issue with the cabin air quality. The airline has initiated an investigation into the occurrence. A ventilation problem during the de-icing is being suspected. Now, in the comments on the Aviation Herald, some interesting ones that I highlighted. And first of all, it says that at Quebec City, you can only de-ice and anti-ice at the gate. The airport has some of the harshest winter conditions in the world, and they have no central de-icing facility. So they were at the gate, as the report mentioned. It was at the gate with the engines off, another commenter says. However, the ground personnel started spraying de-icing fluid without confirming that the aircraft was configured for de-icing, which in this case means that the APU bleeds off and the ditching switch on. And again, this is an Airbus A321. And apparently, another commenter says that the de-icing provider did not confirm with the crew if the aircraft was configured. And that's according to what this commenter heard on the radio. So apparently the de-icing procedure proceeded without the proper safe gap steps being performed. And I'm assuming now that the APU bleeds were open, which means that the auxiliary power unit was sucking air and the air was filled with the mist of the de-icing fluid, and it got sucked up and burned inside the APU and through the air conditioning pack system and into the cabin, which is not a good thing because we all, those of us who fly airplanes that are de-iced on a regular basis, know that there's a whole long procedure that we go through, a checklist to make sure that the airplane is properly configured for de-icing, which means that you just shut off anything that's going to pull in any of the surrounding air.
Yeah, and I mean, don't you delay after you get the ice, Jeff? I delay at least a minute or more.
Yeah,
Or
the
I'm trying
checklist
to
calls for at least 1 minute before you turn on the bleeds again.
And I generally wait a good amount of time before I even turn that on.
And even then, when you apply the power for takeoff, you can smell something that is not what you normally smell. So that some residual fluid always seems to make its way into the engine bleed system.
Well, and I think that's the one disadvantage of the 88 versus something like a airplane that has wing hung engines, is that as you're going down the runway, we've got fluid coming off the top of the wings that I'm sure is being ingested into the engine in some way.
That's true. Yeah,
because I mean the other day I just had my wings and tail done in Detroit. No fuselage done. And we had shut down the APU, had both engines running, never turned the APU bleed air back on. We had no odor in the cabin until we took off and had that odor. So I imagine it came right off the top of the wing. Had to have. It's the only place it can.
I had my wings and tail done last week as well.
I bet you did.
I was waiting for that comment.
Thank you. That's just what you expect, isn't it, Steph?
It really is. I was already making notes in my little HR.
Is that what from the comment from poor Steph being the fuselage and the two dogs being the wings? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Not sure what the connection is there, but there might be one. Anything else to say about that?
Oh, I like this. If I remember correctly, a lot of de-ice fluid is propylene glycol based, perhaps. Yes. Found this interesting tidbit. Propylene glycol has the dubious honor of being named the American Contact Dermatitis Society's Allergen of the Year for 2018.
Yay! They made it. Allergen of the year.
Yes.
Excellent.
I feel like that's not a good prize to win, but
yeah.
I can imagine why a few people may have needed a little bit of medical treatment if they were exposed to that. Anyway.
Yeah. Just out of interest, you guys probably don't have a ditching push button.
Nope.
Okay. On the Airbus, it automatically closes all the doors that are below the waterline, so that it seals off the belly of the aircraft. And obviously, it's designed to be used in cases of ditching, and they use it also in these cases just to make sure there's no way anything can get into the aircraft. It's an easy way to seal up a lot of the airplane. And it was one of the buttons that sadly Sully and his lovely first officer, Mr. Skiles.
Jeff Skiles.
Skiles, that's an interesting name. Forgot to, they were a bit busy at the time, but they didn't press that button, which is why the aircraft subsequently sank.
Ooh, oh well.
Partially.
Yeah. So, it's my understanding also that not all of the narrow body Airbuses have that switch, or do they all?
Don't know. I don't have extensive knowledge of all the marks. Just the ones I fly. Right. It's hard enough.
All the ones that you fly have the switch?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Well, we only have one hole.
All right.
One hole below the water line.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
is that the one the passengers get in?
Through? Well, no, and it's only because they just did recurrent last week, and they actually had us ditch in the water.
How did that go?
It actually went very well.
Did they actually let you touch the water, or did they? Stop
they're supposed to stop you at 1,000, but the FO was flying, and I took over, and I took the airplane, and just above the water, I started bringing, bleeding off my airspeed, pulled my nose way up until just got to stall, and that's when I hit the water. So I basically hit it as slow as I possibly could. So it worked out well. But on our airplane, the only thing that you have to really be concerned about with a big open hole on the fuselage, and we do have it, you could think of it as a ditching switch, is the auto pressure controller. If you go to manual and close those, to, which is the sugar scoop, and also the big plate back there, which is that's the biggest hole in the airplane. That will close those two, and then we're pretty much closed up on the 88 to 90. We do have the VSCF openings, but I don't think they're going to flood the airplane very much. So, on our airplane, we wouldn't actually need a ditching switch.
The VSCF, the variable speed constant frequency drive.
Yes, VSCF, variable speed constant frequency.
Is that a generator drive of some kind?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they had this brilliant idea, instead of having the
CSTs,
the generator on the accessory case at the engine, they put all that stuff like up in the front of the fuselage, and they have I don't know, it's kind of a complicated system, but
they put the generators in the front. What, you got a huge drive shaft going down the length of the airplane?
with mice running on a treadmill.
Yeah. Hamsters, actually, they've upgraded.
I think that after they did that, they thought, that wasn't really a really great idea, but they did it. It was already done. So, deal with it.
Love it.
Okay. Tornado wreaks havoc on Turkish airport. Reek. Damages
I used
planes.
to fly the Tornado.
Well, you probably wreaked havoc on all kinds of things.
Wasn't me, honest.
Yeah, right.
What was his name?
At least 12 people waiting to board a plane in Turkey were injured after a powerful tornado caused significant damage to 2 airplanes and toppled multiple buses. Travelers waiting to board their plane at Antalya International Airport. Is that the way you pronounce that? Antalya. Anyway, that international airport in Turkey on Saturday filmed intense footage of the storm as it pushed around planes, toppled air stairs, and flipped buses. Sorry, Jen. An Airbus A321-231 belonging to Owner Air and a Boeing 737 MAX 8 belonging to Corendon Airline were both damaged in the powerful storm, according to airlive.net. In addition, 2 buses, 2 minibuses, 2 air stairs, and 1 police helicopter were also damaged.
Oh, those air stairs. Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, by the way, I'm flipping a bus.
Pardon?
I'm flipping a bus.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that what you call that sign?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. What's...
That's flipping a bird. Is what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
It's a bird. Yes.
I'm sure there were birds flipped in this tornado too.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll work on your your American
your American nomenclature.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
At least 12 passengers were injured while on a bus waiting to board. And anyway, so check it out. Again, another video you need to see if you haven't already. Yeah, it was a bona fide tornado that hit the airport. And,
I'm surprised there's not more damage on American soil from these sort of things, because you guys, you're there's a lot of these things, don't you?
Yeah,
we do get quite a lot of tornadoes.
Don't expect to get them in Turkey.
No, I was kind of surprised to read about this. I didn't realize that that's probably not a normal thing for Turkey.
Wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah.
No, you can get a tornado anywhere in the world. They just happen to be much more common in certain places.
In Australia, they call them willy willies.
Willy willy?
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, the little ones that occur over.
Are they wee
willies? Dirt devil or something?
Yeah, that's right. Dust devil.
Or dust devil, yeah.
Yeah, water spout over the sea.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hear about this over in the UK, Nick, about this footballer that was...
Oh, yeah, most certainly.
Emiliano Sala was in a Piper 46, I think.
It's a Malibu, isn't it?
Malibu. Is that a 46? Something like that. Anyway, I don't know what the numbers are. But he was a passenger on a Malibu, and it was just he and the pilot. And he was using WhatsApp. And I guess there's a way that you can record audio on WhatsApp. And he said, "Hi, friends. I'm here in Nantes. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. NANTES, doing millions of things. There I am on a plane that seems to about fall apart. I'm tired. If all goes well tomorrow, I train with my new team. If in an hour and a half you have no news of me, I do not know if they will send someone to find me because it will be hard to find me. So apparently this guy sensed that there was something not quite right about this flight, and apparently the last radar report from this airplane, they were about 5,000 feet. I guess the weather wasn't very good. Apparently the Malibu does not do well in icing conditions, apparently. I'm not even sure if it's certified for flight into known icing conditions. I'm not sure. But apparently they're thinking that this is what may have happened when they were flying over the English Channel. Probably got to the point where the airplane became uncontrollable, whatever. It crashed into the English Channel, they're thinking. And yeah. So what have you heard?
Well, you know what the newspapers are like. There's flat facts in inverted commas flying around all over the place. So they were trying to work out whether the guy was flying this as a commercial flight. It appears not. It appears it was a favor for a friend, but he wasn't very current. He was working on an FAA license, which allowed him to fly this aircraft. This aircraft is not certified for to do commercial flights in the United Kingdom, so he couldn't have taken money for it unless it was, under the counter. So he was a private pilot, and apparently had been due to leave that morning, but for some reason there was delay. I don't know what that delay was. No one seems to have found out. They left quite late, and then it got dark, and they were flying around the Channel Islands. And they were speaking to one of the air traffic authorities on the Channel Islands, and they just disappeared. So not good. And they found a few bits of wreckage, but they haven't found any sign of the main part of the aircraft or any bodies or anything as yet.
So where are the Channel Islands?
They're kind of they're halfway between England and France, except they're not halfway. They're slightly more on the French side.
Okay.
So, they're under kind of British oversight, but they do have their own independent laws and things. But that's kind of where they are.
Oh,
and I think it's Nantes, Nantes.
Okay.
Is that in France?
Yes, but I'm no expert on French pronunciation. What does Truman think? How does that pronounce?
He says,
yeah,
that sounded like Taco.
That was his French.
Was that Truman or Taco?
It's hard to tell. I think that was Truman.
They're imitating each other now.
Yes,
that's very clever.
I know.
Well, finally, in the news folder, we have this: a runway incursion of a Hawaiian Airlines flight, an Airbus A330 at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, which did cause some go-arounds. And apparently 2 airplanes did have to go around because of the airplane that was on the runway, the active runway, and it was not supposed to be there. And there is some video. I'll play the audio from the video and we can hear a little bit of this. Okay.
Traffic on the runway is bonus. And sorry about that.
Oops, sorry about that.
458, you are entering runway 22. Arrival traffic is making one up. Immediately after runway 22 and right hand to Bravo 7 going up. Okay, so you want us to taxi on to runway 22 and then Bravo 7 for Hawaiian 458. Hawaiian 458, one foot ahead. Enter runway 22. Construct runway 22 immediately.
Yeah, you could hear the whole or watch the video. Apparently, this was a plane spotter. I'm guessing that took this video because you can kind of hear some of the noises he's making in the background, and he must have a scanner or something listening to.
He's also got a bit of a cold because he does a lot of sniffing.
Not sure what that noise is.
What a background noise.
Yeah, it's not a great recording, but anyway, at least
He's not using the
kinda,
nice microphones.
Yeah,
no.
He's not using a nice microphone, but at least we got a chance to hear a little bit of. There's more to it. It's a 3 minute and 6 second video that is posted, and which we'll have in the show notes. But apparently, the Hawaiian flight was heading out for takeoff and missed or didn't do the proper thing and ended up encroaching or intruding upon the active runway and caused 2 airplanes to go around. Yeah, that's not good.
He was supposed to hold short and he didn't. He just carried on and taxied up Bravo 7 onto the active runway and then sat there.
So yeah, let's just stop. Well, so I've not flown into that airport. Nick, have you?
No, it was one of our major diversions out of Narita when we flew there. And the only comment I'm going to say is, a lot of these airports at night are hard to navigate around. And you've got to have an ear for the Japanese accent when they're speaking English, because the first time you hear it, it's a bit like the first time you go to JFK and start getting the controllers and they're talking a bit fast and they're in their New York accent mode. And you just keep looking at the other bloke going, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say?
I don't know. Just stop.
Was that English?
I don't need a
English in this country.
I don't need a translator in New York. So does that mean I don't need a translator in Hacienda?
I'm not sure that transfers over.
In what area?
Anita, you might do. You might do.
As a Boston, you would say.
I'll be visiting that airport.
That accent takes a bit of getting used to, and it's not always the easiest thing.
I'll be visiting that airport in a month. Actually.
That's why I don't fly international.
Right. Okay.
I don't have to learn any other accent other than English.
Which accent?
Well, what accent is that you speak with, then, Danny? Because that ain't English.
We're going to go with that. Anyway, back to this incident. Apparently, the whoever was talking on the radio, they understood that they had screwed up. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. There are a couple of those.
My bad. Anyway, well, happy ending, except for the 2 airplanes that had to go around, but
nobody died.
Nobody died in this one, so that's a good thing, right? Okay, and of course, the moral to the story is just pay attention, please. What you're doing out there.
Exactly.
You could impact other people's lives. All right. With that,
Jeff?
Yes.
Before we move on to the next section,
okay.
Is there a way I can have the floor for just a second? Because I forgot to talk about something with all the rushing around, and it's not very nice of me to forget about something that happened this past week that you and I had a very, very good conversation regarding.
Okay.
So can I have the floor for just a minute?
Wait, hang on. Dana, you have the floor.
Perfect. I have to say, I had a very awesome experience this past week that I completely forgot to mention about when I was talking about the this past week and what I've done, and that is John and Shirley Breck, who are Breck.
Right. Yes,
I had the unique opportunity. John invited me to come on over because they had sent a Christmas card. We're now in January, into January, that got returned. And so they wanted me to, he was going to stop by. And I said, well, why don't I stop by your house if you don't mind? I'm actually out and it'll be easier. And little did I know that this gentleman, John, he has come to, actually, he was here for the 300th episode, brought an entire setup and set it up in the Den area. And
he's been to several of our APG Atlanta meetups.
He has, and he has a lot of historical information that he brought over. I didn't realize to the extent what John has in his house, in his basement. I was invited downstairs, and I was absolutely, completely, and totally floored at the amount of information, historic information, that John and Shirley have in their house. I saw so many interesting aviation things, including, back in the day, they actually had the captain write out a ticket for the passengers, or that to some extent, and that was hanging on the wall. He has aviation photographs everywhere. He has a DC-4. I think it's a DC-4. John, shoot me if it's wrong. No, I'm pretty sure it's DC-4. He's got the commander's seat, the commander's control column, and then the entire center console sitting there in his basement. He's got aviation memorabilia that belongs in a museum. The amount of stuff that he has in that basement, aviation based. He actually has a lot of train stuff because he worked for the railway. It was just it's like a living museum. And what I found the most fascinating was that with each thing that we touched, he knew an entire backstory on each item. So where it came from, what it was. He showed me the first flight recorder that was ever installed on an airplane. And I forget what it's called because I'm not very good with names, but it was the first flight recorder, and I think it recorded something with the parameter of speech, one other parameter of what the flight controls were, and there's three parameters. I don't remember them all. He had the actual manual that goes with it. It was just absolutely amazing. Anybody that ever comes to Atlanta, and I spoke at length with Jeff about this, including, and I texted Nick as well. Anybody that ever comes to Atlanta has got to, with advance warning, come over to John's house, because it is an absolute gold mine for any aviation enthusiast in the world, because he probably has, I'm not going to say the best personal aviation collection in the world, but probably one of the best personal aviation collections in the world. He's got a magazine from I think it was 1947 from Pan Am, I think it was, that was in a leather binder. That is what they used on the airplanes. He's got, I mean, it's so fascinating. He's got an original pilot operating handbook from a Acme L1011, dated, last update was 1982, I think it was, or was it 72? It was crazy. It was just sensory overload. So John, my hat's off to you. You are an amazing collector. What you've done in the aviation world, you have collected so many artifacts that I don't think anybody could probably ever replace the amount of stuff that you have. You are a true hero to me. He gave me something, I promised, that I'm going to frame for him. I'm going to put it up. All right. This print that he gave me, all right, of a Delta Airlines, very similar to Acme, but not Acme, jet airliner, DC-9, which they don't fly anymore, was printed in May 1966. This is what he gave me. He made me make a promise that I would get that framed, and I absolutely will, because it's amazing the amount of stuff that man has. So
now, John was a longtime employee of that airline.
No, he was not.
Oh, he wasn't?
He worked for the railroad, and his dad, and I sent you the photograph.
Oh, I thought that that letter was to John. That was to his father. Oh, okay.
His dad.
Gotcha.
C.E. Woolman, the founder of Delta Airlines, similar airline to who we work for, sent his father a personal letter signed by him, congratulating him on his, I think it was his 30th anniversary.
I'm not sure what anniversary it was, but
but
something about his pen.
It was his pen, personally thanking him for his service. And I looked at that and I said, I don't think this probably exists anywhere. Maybe at the museum, maybe, but probably anywhere does it exist. It was just absolutely jaw dropping. So I almost want to suggest let's try to have the meetup at John's house next Friday night. I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, but you know what? I'm going to reach out to him because let me tell you what, it would be absolutely 100% worth going over to his house to see.
Surprise, John.
Surprise, John.
Party at your place.
Shirley.
Party at your
Shirley's
place.
going, no.
It's like I'm never talking to these people again.
By the way, John is in the chat room right
Yes.
now of our live show, and he said it was a DC-7, not a DC-4.
DC-7. See, I can't. I see. I was actually totally 100% overload because it was just I was floored at what that
Dana
gentleman
sent me some
has.
pics that he took of the museum that John has at his house, and I was just amazed.
I think we also saw some of them. Yeah.
So, Steph,
Seriously cool,
if you come over in February,
Mhm.
for the meetup, and of course the
yes.
yes. I would highly recommend that we try to get you over there. Jeff, I need to get you over there. I mean, he is just it's astronomically awesome. I cannot tell you how amazing. It just kind of took this whole entire APG thing that we're doing here and took everything that I've imagined this is and put it into one room, or really two rooms. What he has, 2 rooms. And you know, I have another friend of mine that's very much an aviation collector, very similar to John, not as nearly extensive as his collection is. And ironically, the time that I'm sitting and we talk like once every 2 or 3 months. And who calls me when I'm sitting in John's basement? But my buddy Craig, who is also an aviation collector, my buddy who works for American. And so I took him on a video tour via my what's it called, the iChat, not the iChat, the
iMovie or
no, when you're talking via
FaceTime.
So so I took him via FaceTime on the tour, and he was just absolutely floored at what John has in his basement.
Very cool.
My hat's off to him. I'm sorry I didn't mention it earlier. I'm sorry I took so much time talking about it, but let me tell you something. It's an absolute amazing personal collection. And my hat's off to you, John.
Yep. I'm looking here at everybody on the crew, and all of us have our hats off to John.
Yep.
Indeed, we do.
Yeah, usually I have a hat on. Yeah, it's off.
Well, I can't believe
today.
some of the artifacts you've got. You took pictures of, Dana, because they do look brilliant.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And Nick, I pray that you get over here to Atlanta, because I really, I mean, I will. I'm not going to say this publicly, but there are things that I will do to make sure that you get to see this display, brilliant. Because it's absolutely, that's the correct word, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And so again, everybody's hats off, and I have my pants off as well.
Too much information.
HR, help, HR.
Captain, incoming message.
What?
Didn't see that one coming. Otherwise, I would have put the kibosh on it in advance.
All right, let's start with some audio feedback from Tom Harris. Here we go.
Hi, BG crew, it's Tom here. I just wanted to respond to a couple of things that I heard in the last episode I listened to, which was 357. Sorry if I'm a little bit behind. I do listen to the audio podcasts generally on my way into work in the car or as I'm driving about. And so I'm not there for the live streams. I don't think I've managed to get to one yet, which is a shame, because my next point was that I feel over the last year while I've been listening to the show, it's really had a positive impact on my life, and it's something that I learned from, not just in terms of aviation, but just the general way that I go about things. It's had a really positive impact. So thank you for putting the show together and all the effort that you put into it. And hopefully I will get involved in the be able to get involved in the community at some stage, because I feel like I know everyone already. When really I'm probably just a lurker. But anyway, I'll get on with what I wanted to say. I just wanted to first of all build on I think it's Deanna's, and sorry if I haven't pronounced that properly, Deanna's feedback. She was the veterinary surgeon who was speaking about patient confidentiality, and she got onto the subject of mental health and the German wings accident, and it made me think actually it must be such a difficult one for a physician, aeromedical examiner to deal with, because as we know, the safety culture in aviation, it's non-punitive, it's a just culture, it's a reporting culture, and the last thing you want to do is to put off anyone who might be suffering from some sort of adverse mental health from actually reporting it and doing something about it. And if there's a threat that they would be reported for trying to deal with this mental health issue or have their license taken away, then that's going to potentially stop them from reporting it in the first place. And I think it's a shame some of these incidents, like the German wings accident, and when they get out into the public, immediately everyone jumps on board and says, well, how can a pilot have mental health issues? They mustn't have mental health issues. But I think the matter of the fact is that everyone has mental health, and I'm sure we've all suffered with something at the time, whether it's situational or whatever, really, that can affect the way that we think. And actually, the German wings accident is probably the exception and not the rule. I think most of the time a mental health problem isn't going to cause someone to dive their A320 into mountains, but the danger is in not reporting those mental health issues, because what could happen is that they cause a distraction on the flight deck, and people might not be performing as well as they could do, and that could have a secondary impact on the safety of the flights. And so we have to be really careful, because if we create a culture where pilots are not wanting to tell their doctors about any things they might be going through fear of being taken off duty or losing their jobs, then they're going to be carrying these issues with them as they go about their duties. Anyway, just to sort of open that discussion up a bit more, perhaps, and see what everyone else thinks about it. But the main thing I wanted to talk about was coming out of the closet. And no, I don't mean in the way that we traditionally associate it. But this was prompted by Nolan's feedback, where he was talking about actually embarking on his journey to become a pilot. And he said one of the hardest things was actually telling people that that's what he wanted to do. And that's something I completely relate to. I'll go into my background a little bit to start with. I've always been fascinated by aeroplanes and aviation from a very young age, but because of my upbringing, I basically didn't even consider that it would be a possibility or something that I could pursue. I didn't even go there. It was something I was definitely interested in, and I definitely imagined myself in that situation as I was young, but I didn't even think. I don't know why, but I just didn't even think to pursue it as a career. It was just way out there. But anyway, as I grew up and I realised actually you don't have to always fit the mould. I actually had a few things that happened. I took my first commercial flight, which the first officer or the captain, I can't remember which, stood up and gave an announcement, which and I could see that this was something that he was really passionate about doing. He actually stood in front of the cabin, and you could just see that he was 100% on board with this, and that kind of made me think, wow, I would love to do that. I'd love to do what he's doing. And then I had a trial flight lesson, and that was it really. I basically fell in love with it, and from that point on, I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue. I knew, almost, to be a bit cliche, that's what I felt like. That's what I was born to do. As I first took off in that Piper, little Piper aircraft. But what Nolan said completely resonated with me, in that actually it's as a nearly 30-year-old man with 2 children and married, telling people that you want to be a pilot does get a mixed reaction. I've had, and it took me a long time to do it. And first, I had to obviously tell my fiance at the time that that's what I wanted to do. And I have to confess, I didn't do that. I didn't do that particularly well. I always picked my moments to sort of announce to her that I decided that I'm going to do a 180. And I was studying for my degree at the time in agriculture. I want to be a pilot, which was interesting. And the first time that I announced that was a few months before we got married, and put that to bed fairly quickly. The second time was, I think, about 2 weeks before she gave birth to her first son, and then the third time was a little while before she gave birth to our second son. So yeah, my timing hasn't always been great with that one, but I think, eventually she kind of realized actually he's serious about this, and this is something that he wants to do, and he's very passionate about it. And I think when she realized that, I haven't made it easy for her, let's put it that way. And I do want to sort of, say that she's been incredibly supportive, which is, really important. She didn't have to support that crazy dream of mine. But yeah, you get a mixed bag of reactions when you tell people when you've got a successful career, and you're knocking 30. Yeah, I want to be a pilot, and it can be anything from, wow, I don't know what to say, I'm just disappointed, which sounds crazy, or people sort of quietly back away from you like you're crazy, and they can do. Or it could be, wow, we were getting on so well until you dropped that bomb, you must be mad, and then you never hear from that person again. I'm joking slightly, but it is quite a daunting thing in when you're in the situation that I'm in, to tell people that that's what you want to do. But what I would say is that most of the time you have a positive conversation with whoever it might be that you're sort of telling that. And I would encourage anyone who's in the same position as myself or Nolan, where you're slightly dubious about actually imparting that information. I'd encourage anyone to just go ahead and do it, because the more conversations you have with people, you'll be surprised. The more doors open, and the more the thing that you're dreaming about becomes a possibility. And to be honest, what other people think, it doesn't really matter. People don't really understand your motivations and your reasons behind doing things. And what I would say, and sort of Dana said this in response to Nolan's feedback, but you got to be true to yourself. There's no point in hiding something that is an important part of you. You got to overcome the hurdles and get it out there, and try and get people to realize that this is something that you're serious about. But anyway, I suspect this is something that isn't uncommon, and so it would be really interesting to sort of see what the rest of the community think about it, and if there's been any similar experiences, and the crew as well. I wonder if Dana, with his sort of later start into the career, had a similar sort of hang up about telling people. But anyway, that's been long enough from me. Thanks again for the show. As I say, it's fantastic. And yeah, I look forward to listening to many more episodes. Cheers.
Cheers, Tom. Wow. Thank you very much for taking the time to send in that thought-provoking feedback. And so am I getting the gist of this correctly, that it was somewhat embarrassing for him to admit that he wants to change careers and become a pilot?
Yep.
I think so.
And is it because of kind of the lightness in his career path, or just being a pilot at all?
Embarrassment, Jeff. I mean, it's like admitting you want to be a pole dancer, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did you know that I was thinking about doing that?
I have limited experience with pole dancers, but usually they're not embarrassed to admit.
No, they're not embarrassed at all.
Yeah, your analogy kind of breaks down a little bit, Nick.
Damn, I shall think of something else.
Well, Dana, he mentioned you specifically.
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that I've had absolutely no issue talking about it, and being a mid-career changer. And really, for me, it wasn't truly a mid-career change as much as it was what I had always set out to do in becoming a pilot. So I don't have any issue talking about it and encouraging people that if they have a desire to go ahead and fly airplanes for a living, and you shouldn't be embarrassed by that at all, because it's, it's a very prestigious career that we are very much a part of and enjoy. So I have no issue encouraging people that want to become pilots to do it. Just why not? Why would you be embarrassed? I mean, there's nothing. If you said you wanted to quit a successful engineering degree and become a garbage, collector, then maybe I might have some reservations. But if you want to, change your career from something that you have been, doing that has, brought you some happiness, and of course puts food on the table and keeps a roof over your head, sure. I mean, that's admirable. But if you decide that, well, in the middle of it, I want to become a pilot, it's what I've always dreamed, and I'm going to drop everything and become it. Well, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. I think I kind of get where he's coming from a little bit, just being on the side of things where I'm not an airline pilot. I'm not a professional pilot. I don't do it for my career. And I actually had the experience the other night where I was with a group of acquaintances at dinner, people I don't know too well. But the topic came up, other things we do, hobbies, things like that. And flying and piloting came up. And the reaction is a little bit of a strange one from some people, because it's kind of this sense of, and I think a lot of people don't know pilots, or a lot of pilots personally. So it seems like this thing that's kind of something that some people do, but is kind of unobtainable or very difficult to break into or become a part of, even if you're interested or passionate. And I don't think anyone certainly looks down on it as a career choice or even as a career switch, but I think a lot of people have, and we've heard this from even some of our listeners, gosh, I'd like to do it, but wow, the barriers just seem insurmountable. So they kind of look at you like, why would you toss aside something that has been perhaps successful for you and go down this path of something that, takes a lot of time, money, and energy to get into? So,
and there's no guarantee that you'll actually make it after all of that.
No, none.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the questions that I get. It's like, well, how did you find time to do that? How did you find the money to do it? How did you, for a lot of people, it's a fear thing. A lot of people are afraid of flying, so they don't understand why you'd want to be the person flying the aircraft. that is something that comes up a lot in people in conversation when I talk to people.
Truly, it's a passion. Mm-hmm. In the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and if you look in the mirror and you say, well, what am I doing here? I mean, you just have no fire in life. You just don't have any passion in life. And you wake up in the mirror and you look and it's like, what am I doing here? Whereas when I wake up in the morning, I put my uniform on and I look in the mirror and it's like, All right, so that's an ugly guy, but
Damn.
I really do enjoy what I'm doing. I have passion for what I do,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful every day that I get to wake up and go and do and perform the job that I've always had a desire and passion for, and I'm very thankful for that, because there was a lot of excuses for me throughout my 20s that I made and said, I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. I get motion sickness, blah, 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 all these things. And truth be told, I don't get motion sickness. It was just a simulator that was screwing my brain, right? So I understand all these things now, and it makes sense. So if you have a passion, if there's something you want to do in life, if you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you say, well, I'm not happy about what I'm doing, well, make a change.
Yeah.
And whether it's you become an airline pilot, or you go fly airplanes, or you just go get your instrument pilot, or become a private pilot, anything you want to do, if you have a passion for it, pursue it. Doesn't have to be a career change, but whatever you want to do, live your life, because you don't want to live your life with regrets.
And as Fred says in the chat room, I encourage anyone to pursue their dream and take up pole dancing.
Absolutely. And I would just think perhaps Tom is mixing in the wrong circles, because we can be his surrogate aviation family, and he'll find nothing but enthusiasm for a switching career and nothing but support, etc. He needs to perhaps find that locally and make some friends in the aviation world who will give him advice that is colored in a completely different way to perhaps those who aren't. So yeah, go visit your local airport, hang out with some of the pilots there, go visit some gyms.
Well, Tom, there are a lot of people
without poles, but I'm sorry. Very well said, Nick.
So Tom, as you probably know, there are a lot of people in our community who have done this mid-career change and are very happy that they did. So you're not alone. And as Nick said, just hang out with people like us who understand your passion. And
absolutely.
And you don't need to be embarrassed at all. I've never been embarrassed about being a pilot, that's for sure.
And and that's one thing here on that, Tom, and that is today, with all the adversity I was facing with a 2-hour delay, and I'm not going to pat myself on the back, because I'm not one to do that, but it's all the experience that I had throughout my entire aviation career has come to play in a few situations, and today was one of them, where I'm using my customer service skills, using my diplomacy, talking to the maintenance folks, talking to the airport customer service folks, talking to the customers, keeping them informed, and I'm using all that information I've gained over my entire career to be able to give the customers that are sitting in the back, looking to me for leadership and information, for me to deliver that information to them. So, there's a lot of advantage to the amount of experience that I have in my background that helps me to be a better captain, and just not a limited background in just, one area and flying airplanes. And I'm not, and that's not a poke at anybody else, because I can assure you, and I've seen it in action, Jeff and other captains that have been very instrumental in my development, certainly have put forth the customer service end of things, and always do and continuously do. So it's through their leadership that I learned and was able to and able to apply what I've learned as all my different jobs, and then now as a captain, to make a difference for the folks on the airplane. So, either that, not only that, but make them feel comfortable with what the folks are doing to fix the airplane. So there's many levels there. And so you have to look at that and understand that, there's a lot of positive that can come from experience in changing mid-career.
And Jeff's instrumental is the trumpet.
Yes, and piano.
Yeah.
Oh, and the piano.
Wow. I've seen him blow the trumpet
at the same time. Trumpet one hand, piano in the other.
No,
not that talented.
How do you blow a piano?
You play with the keys.
Okay.
Okay.
This is
The HR book has
a
filled
nasty
up
twist.
And hey, Jeff, for once, it wasn't me.
I know. Thank you, Dan.
No
That's
kidding.
right. But you gave me the lead in. I couldn't have done it without you, Dana.
Moving on. As they-
The funny part is maybe it's not me that's being replaced here, Nick.
Well, to tell the truth,
It's
that'll be a great
me.
relief.
You're all on thin ice.
That's all right. He can't get these people to show up for their job interviews, so I think we're okay for another week.
Yeah, I know.
We've snuck
Yeah.
through for another week.
I thought we were going to get a
Jokes on you.
Klingon on the team. That would have been good.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Try to get it back on track here. Number 3, Robert, our friend in Marietta, Georgia, he travels a lot, and he happened to be in Oklahoma City last week, or a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure how long ago it was, and he got a chance to walk through the History of Women in Aviation Museum. From the earliest flights to the present day, and enjoy the permanent exhibits on famous women and pilots in Oklahoma City. Okay. So he sent us a few links, which you'll find in the show notes. One is a video that he did, and then also a bunch of great photographs. And I included a couple of them that I thought were quite interesting in our show notes, in our crew show notes here. There's a nice article talking about the founding of the 99s. And, honestly, I knew that the 99s were a women's aviation group. And I didn't really know how they got the name 99s, but I guess when they were originally formed and charted and formed this group of women, they didn't. Oh, did I skip something? No, I did not intentionally. I'm going to continue with this one, and then we'll go back to number 2. Thank you, Liz. She's trying to keep me straight. Anyway, I didn't realize that the original group of people in this group were the number was 99, and so that's how they ended up.
That is correct.
Yeah, I guess
Ding.
obviously Steph knew that.
I did.
Are
I'm
you
not a member of the 99s, but
Okay.
I did know that about the 99s.
How do you become a member of the 99s?
I think you fill out a membership application and pay money.
Oh, okay. So do you have to be a woman? Probably do.
You know what? I am not, because I'm not a member. I'm not 100% certain. I've actually thought about joining and just, quite frankly, have not gotten around to it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
anyways.
mean, there's a couple of like Women in Aviation or Women Aviation International of the 99s. A couple nice organizations out there that are very supportive of women in aviation.
And they sponsor what was it called? The powder powder puff
Powder Puff Derby.
Derby. Yeah. A kind of a race. And in fact, and by the way, one of the very famous woman pilots, and I think was the first president of this organization, was Amelia Earhart.
Correct.
And so apparently they had some kind of a race, and there's like a map and then some news items regarding some of the people that were involved in this race, and it's very, very interesting to read. Like, for instance, Ruth Elder, her map flew out of the cockpit. She landed in a field of bulls to orient herself. A ranch wife gave her directions. Race day 2 continued. Thea Rash, her engine stopped running due to dirt in her fuel tanks, either caused by foul play or poor mechanics. She did an emergency landing near Holtville, California. Let's see. There's some. What?
Jesse Keith Miller ran out of fuel in Elfrida, Arizona, and walked 18 miles to get help. Goodness.
And it was not all, laughs and gaffes.
No.
For like Marvell Crossan crashed and was killed. This was due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Several of them, I don't know how many of them were killed in this thing. Let's see.
I like this last.
Sorry, carry on.
I like the last one here, though. Vera Dawn Walker almost hit her father as he came out to greet her while she was landing.
Whoops.
Brilliant.
Oops.
This is one of the races that Pancho Barnes was in. She was the woman that ran the fabulous barn near Edwards Air Force Base, where all the famous test pilots, Chuck Yeager and such, used to go and drink.
Very cool. These women were definitely self-sufficient, like Mary Hazlip. She landed in Washington, Missouri with a broken fuel line. She repaired it herself and continued on with the race.
And Bobby Trout had to weld a loose exhaust pipe, so she was a welder as well. That's good.
Amazing stuff. Ruth Elder, we talked about her on race day 2. On race day 9, Monday, August 26th, she got lost again, and she landed in Akron to orient herself. This made her late landing in Cleveland. Poor Ruth, her navigation skills were not top notch. But
sounds like she did fairly well despite it, though. She made it quite a distance.
It's day 9, but better than a lot of others. Yeah. Pancho Barnes landed on a car and wrecked her airplane.
Amazing. It really makes you realize how far things have come in aviation since 1929.
Yeah, I haven't landed on a car for ages.
Yeah, I know. Me neither.
At least like a decade, right? Yeah.
So after seeing, thank you so much, Robert, for sharing this with us. And next time I have the opportunity to do so in Oklahoma City, I'm going to seek out this museum because it looks like a lot of. And again, look at. I mean, he's almost taken you to the museum without actually going to Oklahoma City by looking at all the great photos he has of all the exhibits there. Some really good stuff. So please check it out. Thank you, Robert, for that. And now we're going to go back to number 2. Sorry. Did not mean to skip this one. Hi, Captain Jeff, Dr. Steph, Captain Nick, and Captain Dana. I've been listening to the APG show since 2014, actually right after my flight training. Here's my story. My first flight was back in 1992 when I was in 6th grade and flew with my family with Northwest Airlines from Taipei to Tokyo. Let me try that again.
What in the world was that?
I was some kind of a monster inside of me. I think it was the beer that I had earlier. My first flight was back in 1992 when I was in 6th grade and flew with my family with Northwest Airlines from Taipei to Tokyo. It was a Boeing 747. Since then, I fell in love with the airline industry. Throughout the years when I grew up, I was majoring in fine art in the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. Even though I was an art major and worked as an animator in the entertainment industry, I had a passion about aviation. From plane shooting, so like a plane spotter, to flight simulators, I tried to learn as much as possible about aviation. Luckily enough, with my family and the support from my wife, I was able to pursue my dream of flying in 2013. I started my flight training in 2013, soloed within 11 hours of light experience, got my CPL with instrument rating in 2014. After that, I went back to Taiwan. I got hired by China Airlines in 2015 and was assigned to the Boeing 747-400 fleet and trained as a first officer. I was honored to be trained with the Queen of the Sky and also the Legend of the Sky. Oh, Dr. Steph? No, he's talking about the airplane, the Boeing 747. I enjoyed ever knowledge about, I enjoyed gaining knowledge about the 747-400, and in November 2017, I got my 744 type rating, and I got sick. I was so seriously sick that I eventually lost my medical certificate, and the company had to let me go at the end of the training program, and he lost his job. I've been resting and taking medication to cure myself for almost 2 years, and during this time, I was working as an airport ground staff. Now, I think I'm about fully recovered from my health issue, and I'm trying to get my medical certificate back so I can get back into the sky again. The only problem would be that I'm turning 41. Still not sure which airline would use a pilot not so young and have so little hours of flying. But I think I will sort it out and try to find a way. Any suggestions? I'm all open to it. Once again, thanks for reviewing my story and questions. Wish you guys all the best, clear skies, and unlimited visibility with tailwinds. And this is from Wanung Singh. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not sure. And he said, oh, P.S. I'm also a marathon runner who loves aviation. We know somebody over here that does that. So he's 41. He has a 747 type rating. Not a lot of time. I don't know what the mandatory retirement age is in China, but I would imagine it probably matches or mirrors our retirement ages, 65. So, he's got at least 20 plus years to fly for an airline. What do you all think?
I think we've said it a lot before.
Well, he's there really. He's just
Yeah.
got to go and get his job back.
Right.
Exactly.
I just see this as just a hurdle to jump in the progression of his career. A couple of years on the ground, I'm sure it won't set him back too much. He stayed in the industry. He's gained more knowledge and experience of how it all works. I think it'd be an asset to any company. So,
and he listens to our show, which is obviously a good
well, yeah,
thing.
you need to put that in
He's
your
got the
CV.
syndrome.
Yeah, put it in your CV.
Maybe
APG listener, put it above everything else.
In like bold and all caps.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe
I
in
listen
very
to
tiny
ADD.
print at the
Anything
end.
else to say?
Very end.
Right to the trash bin with that one.
All right, so I apologize. I apologize ahead of time because I know I'm going to butcher the name. All right, Wenung. Did I get it right? Wenung.
We don't know.
Wenung.
Wenung.
Wenung. My personal advice to you is don't ever put all your apples in one basket, and that's what we have right here. I think you're looking at one job, one company, one position. You have a 747 type rating. You've proven that you can get that you're trainable. So I think, especially over in Asia right now, they are so looking for pilots everywhere. That if you're current and you're able to hold the medical, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find another job. Absolutely, go for it.
But we don't know all the details over their requirements and everything else. So maybe somebody listening. Maybe somebody listening might know a little bit more about what Wanung might do to ensure that he gets that job again. I don't know.
Well, there are some variables. Is he under a waiver, right? Mm-hmm. For his medical, he's 41. I don't know if the Asian airlines look at that in a negative way, but I do know a lot of friends of mine that have haven't been able to move past the regionals. Went over there and flew regional airplanes in Vietnam, more specifically, and there are other opportunities over there that I know of. So if you open up your horizons, I think you'll be able to find something that's going to be able to at least build the currency and help you to hopefully get back to that airline or other opportunities. There are plenty abound.
Yeah, I think we're all looking at this and saying, hey, you have a lot going for you, and as long as you can get over this health issue, it sounds like you have. It sounds to me like you would be an awesome candidate for a lot of these Asian airlines that seem to be hurting a lot more than a lot of other places in the world for qualified pilots.
Yeah, their expansion rate's enormous. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you.
So please let us know if what you find out, and continue to inform us of your journey from this point on, because we always enjoy hearing success stories, and I think that we all believe that you are going to be successful. All right. Let's see. I'm going to skip to 16 because I want to make sure that we cover this before Steph has to leave. This is from Nick, N-I-K. I'm a newish listener here, writing from Devon in the southwest of the UK. In fact, only about 20 minutes from Exeter Airport, as discussed in the last APG, and which I happened to be listening to your discussion about the possible rescue of Flybe exactly at the moment I was driving past on my way to work. I've been a bit of an app geek on the quiet for many years, but only discovered your wonderful podcast about 6 months ago. It was recommended by the science and engineering podcast Omega Tau. Thanks, Marcus. While browsing BBC News, I came across the story about solving the global pilot shortage with female pilots. I'm all in favor of this, and there is some interesting science behind this that suggests that the female brain is better adapted to procedural tasks, which may be highly suited to flying an aircraft. Could be an interesting point for future discussion. And then she puts a link to a bbc.co.uk article regarding, I guess, I don't remember if I clicked on this or not, but it must have something to do with how female brains may be better suited to this job of flying airplanes. Is that what it talked about?
Yeah, I read it. I wasn't entirely convinced by the article, but it was an interesting read.
Okay.
My take from it was just that it's a large portion of the population that is currently underrepresented as a pilot source or a group of people who could be pilots, and I think more and more airlines, for a variety of reasons. It's not just because the only reason isn't because they need more pilots, but it's because more women are just coming into the field at this point as well. So.
Very good. She says, on a separate note, you get a lot of listener feedback asking about moving into a career in aviation. It's been it has long been a dream of mine to fly an airliner, although I suspect now that at 45 years old, I may have left things slightly too late. This is debatable and would largely depend on the cost of training, and how this would be financed and paid back. However, as an aside to that, I've always made the assumption that my eyesight would preclude me from having a career as a pilot. I wear glasses, as I am fairly short-sighted, with a prescription of around minus 2.5 in each eye. My corrective vision is obviously fine for normal day-to-day life, such as riding my motorcycle and doing my job. I'm a mechanical engineer. However, I've long held the assumption that anything much beyond being a GA pilot would require more stringent sight tests, perhaps looking at things such as color blindness, depth perception, or problems with night vision. I just wondered if you might be able to offer any insight into this. Insight, see? Get it? Ah, very clever. So she is smart and has a great sense of humor too.
And funny.
Everything you need.
Perhaps we're all looking for new jobs.
Anyway, thank you to you all. I really enjoy your show, and I'm genuinely impressed by the level of effort and time that must go into each show. It really is appreciated. So thank you to all of you. Best wishes, Nick. So, Steph, do you have anything to say about her last couple of paragraphs here?
I was actually going to go back to the first couple of paragraphs.
Okay.
I don't know about the data or the science behind the female brain being better suited to procedural tasks. I think that's always just an individual thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really pick out men versus women in that aspect. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked too much into the data, to be perfectly honest with it, but I think everyone knows just anecdotally, someone of any gender who is very well suited to a particular task, whether that's procedural tasks that are important as a pilot, whether it's attention to detail, whether it's organizational skills. There's a lot of different types of ways that the brain can organize things that might be helpful for specific career fields or tracks. I'd be interested to see the science. I don't know how you would go about doing all those studies, but if you can find them, send them over. We'll take a look at them. And then going back to, this is kind of a continuation of the theme that we were just talking about, being 45 years old and wanting to get into a airline career. Probably not too late if you have the desire and dream to do it, the financial resources to do it in a, you don't have as much time to get ratings and things like that done as someone who's much younger. But I would say if you're interested at all, go get your medical certificate first, so you can find out about the vision issues and see if that would be something that would be limiting, because it may very well not be.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'm not so sure that there's a huge difference between the requirements of somebody flying GA as a pilot and somebody flying commercially as a pilot. I mean, are there really? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but I was earlier listening to earlier listening to CW Lemoyne. I think he does a
Oh yeah, that was a
5-hour
great
podcast.
Great
That's
video
good, wasn't
there.
it? Absolutely. And he ripped this infomercial about becoming a fighter pilot apart, mentioning that the Air Force at the moment require an eyesight level of not 20/20, but 2200 as a worst case, so long as it can be corrected to 20/20 with eyeglasses. So, nowadays, so long as your vision is good with the appropriate, lenses, then you should have no problem becoming a pilot, certainly an airline pilot, where we're all blind as bats anyway.
Not
But
me.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a couple of us are.
Perfectly.
Yeah, but we're a little bit older than the two.
I'm not even wearing glasses at all yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why you keep hitting
Keyword.
things, mate.
Yeah, right. That's why I'm bald.
No,
I'm
he's
bald.
just reading things from an arm's length away. He's like, I can see this just fine.
Actually, not
I
true
know
yet
you're
at
not.
all.
I know you're not. I know you're not. I'm kidding.
Those taxiway signs getting a little fuzzy, but I still passed my exam.
It's amazing how quickly it happens, though. You start squinting and you're going, I kind of can't, and then all of a sudden, the next year is like I can't see anything.
Really?
Yeah. I was, when I got into the Air Force, it was 20/20 uncorrected. Uncorrected. So the 2200 requirement that Nick was just mentioning, that was not the deal back then. And then even when I was interviewing to get hired by Acme, they required 20/20 uncorrected at that point in the late
really?
80s. And now the day after you're hired, you could completely go blind as a bat as long as you could correct it to 20/20 vision. Yeah, so things have changed quite a bit as far as vision requirements. But go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. So continue.
No.
Seriously, continue.
No.
You're right in the middle of your thought. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that
You guys get your pup in a pile.
My favorite phrase.
I think that Steph's comment and advice to go get that medical first, just to make sure that there isn't some kind of an issue with your vision, would be good. And then if that goes okay or well, then start looking at the reality of how you're going to get the money to pay for those ratings and all the hourly hour requirements you're going to have to get.
In my mind, that's a case of where there's a will, there's a way to do it. But definitely get the medical done first, especially if you have any concerns, because there are some things that are issues, but a lot of things potentially are not as big of issues as some people believe that they might be. And that's a good conversation to have with a knowledgeable aviation medical examiner. And some things do require additional testing or certain waivers or certificates of demonstrated ability. But that's something to look into on an individual basis.
And I personally, absolutely agree with Dr. Steph, and that is that go in not even a class 3.
Get your first class medical if you want to
get your first class medical. If there's any doubt in your mind whatsoever, go get that done. And if you get that, then you should be good to go for foreseeable future.
Yep. Well, very good. Now, Steph, you may be dismissed because we're going to do the plane tale next. So
very good. Yes, I'm sorry to leave a little bit early. I'm feeling, I told Jeff earlier, a little guilty because we kind of worked this around my schedule this week, but it's been a tough week and will continue to be
We'll have a word with
week.
The new HR officer.
I know. I get the feeling on this show in particular that Jeff's been advertising for my replacement.
All our replacements.
I know.
No, I'm not going to replace any of you. Come on.
Well, I will probably continue to listen for a while as I get some other chores done around the house. I do have some things to catch up on, so the week doesn't get away from me here.
Okay.
I must admit, it's the only night I'm home for not this last show, but the show before last. I have one night at home, and what I do spent on APG. I have one night home this week, and where am I? APG. So I love you guys.
Yeah,
you do. And please, Julie probably hates us.
I know.
No, she absolutely loves you. She said she'd be more than happy to have everybody over Friday night, but I think we're working on something else right now.
Okay. Well, very good.
Well, good night, everyone. Thank you all.
Cheers, Jeff. Love you.
See you next week.
Get some sleep.
Thanks.
Okay. With that, I think now we can head over to the plane tail, which is basically the part 3 of the Speedbird 38 incident at Heathrow back in 2008. Is that right, Nick?
11 years ago.
Yeah.
You have to do the math.
Okay.
Sorry.
19 minus 11 is 8.
2008.
Yeah, 2008. And so with that, without further ado.
Poor Nick.
Yeah. Let's hit this button right here.
The old pilot's plane tails. 34 seconds to touchdown. Many pilots of my generation have oft quoted the old saying that they only fly a 4-engine aircraft because no one will give them one with 5 engines. This attitude in the context of modern aviation is patently old-fashioned and harks back to an era when engine problems were considerably more common than today. Modern engine design and sophisticated monitoring has increased jet engine reliability to levels previously unachievable. On a twin-engined aircraft, it is almost unheard of to lose both engines simultaneously, but it has happened. When it occurs, it's often down to one of the few links that the engines share, and of those, problems with the fuel is by far the most common. Fuel starvation or contamination is something that the industry takes very seriously. However, despite our confidence in the power plant strapped to our wings, nature still has a way of catching us out. My last 2 tales were a fascinating interview with Adam Spink, the supervisor in the Heathrow Tower, when a 777 Speedbird 38 lost power and crashed into the undershoot of runway 27 left. Having seen that accident from Adam's point of view, I thought it would be interesting to look at the causes from a technical aspect and see how it unfolded within the cockpit. The accident aircraft, a Boeing 777, is a very common sight in the sky since it ranks as one of Boeing's best-selling models, and it has overtaken the old 747 as Boeing's most produced wide-body jet. It beat off competition from the Airbus A340, and its only rivals are the Airbus A330 and A350. It has a fly-by-wire control system that, like many Airbus models, has flight envelope protection that prevents stalls, overspeeds, and overstresses. It came into service with United in 1995 and has never looked back, with over 1,500 airframes rolling off the production line. It has an excellent dispatch reliability, and there have only been 7 hull losses, the very first of which was Speedbird 38 on January 17th, 2008. This service was returning to London's Heathrow Airport from Beijing in China and was carrying a small load of 136 passengers and a total of 16 crew. At Beijing, the aircraft had been loaded with over 71 metric tons, that's a little over 157,000 pounds, of Jet A1 fuel, with a freezing point of minus 47 degrees centigrade. Aviation fuel for jets comes in various styles, such as JP1, JP3, etc., which are military fuels, and Jet A and Jet A1, which are the most commonly used civil fuels. Jet B is a wide-cut fuel with 30% kerosene and 70% petrol, and because of its low freezing point, it's mainly used in northern Canada, Alaska, and other regions where it's particularly cold. Jet A is usually found in the United States, but it has the worst freezing point of the common fuels. The fuel on board Flight 38 was Jet A1, which is common outside of the United States and is superior in several aspects. It has a freezing point of minus 47 degrees C against minus 40, plus an anti-static additive. During long-haul flights, particularly those that route into the northern latitudes, because of the low outside air temperatures that can be encountered, minus 70 degrees centigrade or below is not uncommon, a close eye is kept on the fuel temperatures to ensure that the fuel doesn't freeze inside the aircraft's tanks. The lowest temperature that Flight 38 encountered was minus 64 degrees centigrade, which might have eventually caused a problem with fuel temperatures, but with the warming friction that occurs, the total air temperature was only minus 37 degrees centigrade, leading to a lowest fuel temperature of only minus 34 degrees centigrade. This might seem a low temperature, but with a 12-degree buffer between the actual fuel temperature and the fuel freezing point, the crew wouldn't have had any concerns. As an aside, managing fuel temperatures is something that crews become very used to. If the fuel temperature starts to get close to the freezing point, there are several strategies that can be employed. If the aircraft is flown faster, the additional friction will warm the airframe a few degrees, which may be all that is needed. The cruising altitude can be reduced to a warmer level, or depending on the aircraft design, the cold fuel can be moved and mixed with warmer fuel in other tanks. Flight 38 did restrict its cruising level initially to flight level 348, that's 10,600 meters, because the air was forecast to be extremely cold around the Chinese-Mongolian border. But after that, it climbed to flight level 400. Although the fuel temperature only got to a rather chilly minus 34, it did remain there for quite some time. As the flight approached London, it descended and took up the hold at Lambourne at flight level 110 for 5 minutes, before being vectored onto the instrument landing system for runway 27 left at Heathrow. As is common with British Airways, the pilot who was flying the aircraft at that point wasn't the pilot who would be conducting the landing. It happened that it was the first officer's turn to land, so the captain was initially the handling pilot. He set the aircraft up on the ILS and had it properly configured for landing with the autopilot and auto throttle engaged, the gear down and the flap at 30, its landing position. At 800 feet above the runway, he handed control to the first officer. Shortly after taking control, with the automatic still engaged, the autothrottles commanded an increase in thrust, and although the engines initially responded, at around 720 feet, the thrust on the right engine reduced. 7 seconds later, the thrust on the left engine also reduced. There were no warnings, no red lights, and master caution alarms. This was a subtle and insidious failure. The engines didn't fail as such, but they rolled back to a little over flight idle power, and much less than was being commanded by the autothrottles. With 48 seconds to landing, the first officer noticed that the throttles were split, in that the lever positions no longer matched with one another. But this wasn't an uncommon event. At 500 feet, the radio altimeter called out the height above the ground, and Heathrow Tower gave a landing clearance. All this time, the aircraft was slowly decelerating and would have started to drift below the glide path except for the autopilot, which was demanding a higher nose attitude to stay at the correct angle. At 430 feet, the captain called that the approach was stable, but the first officer, perhaps starting to realize that things were a bit unusual, replied, "Just." It was 34 seconds before touchdown. By now, the airspeed had fallen below the expected approach speed of 135 knots, and both pilots realized that the engines were at idle power. They attempted to identify the cause, but when the thrust levers were both pushed up to full power, the engines completely failed to respond. When the speed reached 115 knots, the airspeed low warning enunciated along with the master warning. Realizing that they needed less drag in order to reach the runway, the captain raised the flap from flap 30 to flap 25, and he attempted to switch on the engine igniters. Still trying to work out what had happened to his engines, the captain did not get out a brace call to the cabin, although he did put out a mayday call, but with the wrong flight number. However, as we know from Adam's interview on the previous tales, the tower had quickly assessed that a crash was imminent. Now below 200 feet and at only 108 knots, the stick shaker activated, warning the first officer that he was approaching the stall. He pushed the stick forward, which disconnected the autopilot, and as they approached the ground, he pulled back in an attempt to cushion the impact. The aircraft struck the grass-covered undershoot before the runway hard, about 330 meters short of the paved surface and only 110 meters inside the perimeter fence. Behind them were busy roads and buildings, including the Hatton Cross Underground Railway Station. On impact, both the nose wheel and the main landing gear collapsed, the right gear separating completely from the wing. Dragging itself along on its belly and engine pods, the aircraft decelerated very quickly, slewing a little to the right and coming to rest at the start of the paved surface. Lying like a wounded bird, the 777 bled fuel, which gushed from the damaged tanks and the engine fuel pipes until the spar valves were manually closed later. The captain called for a passenger evacuation, but instead of selecting the passenger address system, he mistakenly transmitted the announcement over the radio on the tower frequency. Once the controller had corrected his error, he repeated the call over the PA system before completing the evacuation checklist and escaping the aircraft with his crew. The cabin crew supervised the emergency evacuation via the slides, and quite miraculously, only one passenger was seriously injured, suffering a broken leg that occurred when parts of the right main gear penetrated the cabin. There were 16 minor injuries. The fire crews were on the scene after a mere 1 minute 43 seconds, but despite the fuel and oxygen leaks from the disrupted passenger oxygen bottles, mercifully, there was no fire. The passenger evacuation was completed shortly after the arrival of the fire vehicles. The investigation into the near simultaneous engine failures was complicated. By the time investigators were able to access the scene, any traces of ice in the fuel had long since disappeared, but they were able to take uncontaminated samples of fuel to test. The fuel proved to be completely normal, and the amount of water within the fuel was within the expected range. The freezing point was tested and found to be lower than the Jet A1 limit of -47 at -57 degrees centigrade, making fuel freezing even less likely. The fuel system appeared to have been functioning normally, but examination was able to establish that there had been a fuel flow restriction. In order to locate the problem area, the fuel system was rebuilt using actual pipes, screens, pumps, and the fuel oil heat exchangers salvaged from the wrecked 777 and set up in the Boeing Propulsion Laboratory at North Boeing Field. This facility could reproduce the climatic conditions that Flight 38 encountered to isolate the reason for the engine rollbacks. They knew that the blockages had occurred upstream of the high-pressure pumps, as those pumps had left witness marks when they cavitated due to a lack of fuel. An enormous amount of work was done to ensure that the conditions of the test would duplicate the flight, with different components being cooled to different temperatures, as would have happened on the real aircraft. Suspicion soon fell onto the inlet to the fuel oil heat exchanger. As is common with modern jet engine design, the oil within the engine is cooled by passing fuel through this heat exchanger. This also has the advantage of warming the fuel. Having passed through the heat exchanger, the fuel would then continue its journey on to the high-pressure fuel pump and then into the engine. Despite having a better than normal freezing point, it was proved that ice could form on the inside of the fuel pipes leading up to the heat exchanger, much in the way that plaque can form on the inside of an artery. However, the conditions had to be just right. If the fuel flowed too fast, or the temperature was too high or too low, then nothing would happen. At a particular set of conditions, it was discovered that a buildup of ice would consistently occur throughout the pipe system. This slushy deposit could then be released to form a barrier on the face of the heat exchanger inlet, blocking the flow of fuel. When the temperature profile for the tests was laid against that flown by the accident aircraft on the day, the graphs almost completely matched. The face of the fuel oil heat exchanger was capable of melting the ice that blocked it, but only if the engines were throttled back to idle for a spell. With the prospect of landing well short of the runway, this would hardly have been an option that the crew would have considered even had they known about it. There was no suggestion that a design error had been made by either Boeing or Rolls-Royce. The certification of the aircraft had been correctly performed, albeit on data that was decades old, and the analysis proved that the near unique features of the power settings used on that particular flight exacerbated the problem. Despite the unlikelihood of the situation reoccurring, the design of the heat exchanger faceplate was changed to prevent ice from blocking it in future. The crew on this aircraft were faced with a massive problem that nobody ever imagined would happen, and with only seconds to analyze and correct the problem. There was no checklist, no emergency drill or procedure to follow. They were completely in the dark. The first officer did a good job of handling the aircraft, and the captain's flap reduction assisted the glide distance by over 50 meters, preventing a possible landing amongst the ILS aerials, which could have caused considerably more damage to the aircraft and resulted in more injuries. Overall, it was a remarkably good outcome, a lesson to aircraft and engine manufacturers and all those in the field that we are still a young industry and we need to keep that learning curve pointing upwards.
Wow. Interesting set of circumstances there.
Yeah. Quite. Oh, hello. I'm mirroring myself. Hello.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. Yeah, they were. And I was quite surprised that the circumstances they needed to get that amount of slash to form inside the fuel pipes didn't require very low temperatures. It was quite a mid-range of fuel temperatures, but it was mainly due to the very light weight of that aircraft. It didn't have very many passengers on, hardly any cargo. And so throughout the flight, they had a very low power setting. So whereas normally the movement of the fuel would have carried away any ice forming on the inside of the fuel pipes, in this case, it didn't. It was just the right circumstances to allow that buildup to slowly increase until it became quite a mass, and that all slooshed forward at the same time when they were in the descent or actually on the approach. So, yeah, it was an interesting one. And I have to admire the forensic examination that Boeing did to exactly replicate the circumstances that caused it, see it happen, see where the ice fell, prove their point. And then, basically answer the question. It would have been almost impossible, I think, to work out how it would have occurred otherwise.
I think that this whole thing was a subject of one of those accident investigation programs. And I was just fascinated by, as you said, the process that the engineers went through in replicating the exact circumstances that they encountered on this flight and how they, surmised or ended up figuring out what happened here.
Yeah.
It was, pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think we're all quite interested in the forensics of both this and murder inquiries and all sorts of things. And I admire the people who have the knowledge to do that kind of work enormously. It must be very, very satisfying for them to when they finally come to a conclusion.
Yeah. Well, very good. Another great plane tale. And I suppose that's the end of our discussion of Speedbird 38.
Yeah, I think we've beaten that one to death.
No,
someone in the chat room is asking if I'm going to do interviews with the crew. Nope, I don't know the crew, and I think we've covered all that. I have listened to the interviews that the captain gave afterwards, and after he put out his book. He has written a book on the subject, and he had a bit of a checkered career after that, but having made up with his airline, he did rejoin them. And, I think he continued to, have a good career with them.
Well, good to hear. All right. Thanks again, Nick, for putting all that work into that.
Yeah, my thanks, of course, go to Adam Spink, because without him kicking that subject off and without his fantastic knowledge and willingness to interview, it would have been a nothing story.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. All right. Shall we continue with item 4 from Brett? He says, hello to the APG crew. Thanks for the terrific program and conversations that you have. I was recently using the Google Maps satellite view, and it prompted a question that I don't recall hearing you talk about before. Have you ever been distracted in your flying by the sunlight reflecting off of solar panels? There are solar collector arrays of all different sizes around the country/world, mounted on buildings and across the countryside. I recently noticed the large field of solar panels southwest of the Indianapolis airport, for example. Obviously, there are certain conditions that have to be aligned, like the holes in the Swiss cheese, but it could happen, probably. Thanks again for all your hard work and the team effort. Someday I'll catch you at a meetup. I'll certainly be watching for meetup information at Osh 19 Air Venture. I love that place and am so thankful that my father-in-law introduced me to it in the mid-90s. Regards, and this is from Brett Fry in Ohio. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I do remember talking about solar panels and how they can be a distraction. And so I did a search on the Airline Pilot Guy website, and I found this from March of 2014, episode 109. So this was long before anybody was co-hosting with me. Except for the one-off that Dana did with me in Savannah, episode 90, but it was still a solo effort.
Tony,
excuse me. Yeah. I forgot his name. Anyway, so episode 109, we talked about this article, Desert Solar Power Plant, a risk to air safety, say pilots. And they talked about this large solar array near Las Vegas in the Mojave Desert, and information about how pilots have issued reports regarding being distracted by the solar array. For instance, here is some text from one of the reports. Co-pilot and I were distracted and momentarily blinded by the sun reflecting off the mirrors at the solar power plant facility located near the California-Nevada border near the town of Primm. This solar power plant, which I believe is still under construction, consists of 3 massive circular arrays of thousands of mirrors oriented inward toward a central tower. As soon as we cleared the mountains southwest of BVU from 6,000 to 12,000 feet MSL, still climbing, there were 3 very bright reflections, one from each solar array. Hang on. I hear a knocking at my door. Let's see here. Oh, I think. Hang on. We'll have to pause for a moment. Hang on.
I think we know him who may have just arrived.
Room service? The hooker?
No. Our guest host
The pole dancer.
Our guest host interview.
Ah.
We're still recording. So
see, I told you. I was right on the
I have
money.
it set up and say, come over here and say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
I got you do you have earbuds?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I have some extra ones if you don't mind putting them in your ear.
Sharing the earwax. Sharing the earwax. It's sharing the earwax.
Jeff's earwax is horrible.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, you know, you look remarkably well for how you feel.
That's the IPA. You see, it's the restorative qualities of
Of
good
the
IPA.
IPA.
Sadly, I've run out of IPA, and I'm drinking something called More Confidence, and it says drink more beer, but it's actually MOOR, which I think is quite good. But it's a red beer, a red ale, I should say. It's not really as nice as my previous one.
Oh, sorry. But it's at least
Yeah, it's a
something.
shame.
And there's your earbuds.
It's quite late for you. Let's see. It's just about 1 a.m.
That's your microphone.
Yeah, I'll be happy to go to bed when I get the chance.
That's the key when you get a chance. Well, I do have to be up about 6 in the morning. Go to work again tomorrow.
Text. This little thing popped up and it said knock knock, and I thought that it was from Steph wanting to come back because she's already left the recording.
Yeah, I was listening the way in.
And then I thought I didn't really look because I was reading something, and so I'm thinking, okay, she wants to come back. And then all of a sudden I hear the door knock and I go, oh, no, that wasn't Steph. That was Steven. Okay.
Hello, Steven.
Hey, Dana, how's it going?
Wait, hang on.
Hi, Steve.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Steven. Glad you can join us.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
not
glad
the
to.
only one that has tire troubles today.
Yeah, my U-Haul had to blow it on the way here, so it was been a long day.
Well, great to see you. Well, not quite literally yet. There you are.
I gotta adjust the zoom on this. I didn't know you were going to actually make it. That's cool.
I didn't expect to be here either. But
Okay. Now we're going to go to full zoom out. There we go. Here, you can actually.
There he is. Slide over.
Is this man
get cozy
from
with Jeff.
Arkansas?
No, he's from Louisiana.
All right. Okay.
I'm sorry about the Saints.
It's not Arkansas, although it looks like.
Steve, I'm so sorry about you Saints.
I'm a Cowboys fan, so that's all right.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you know what the forecast is for next Sunday? Partly
What's that?
cloudy skies and 100% chance of no breeze.
So clever.
Oops. Did I say that out loud?
The Breeze, Brees, is the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, Nick. So that's why that's funny.
Okay. I guess they're the
No,
Patriots' opponents in this Super Bowl.
No, they didn't quite make it because of a bad
Oh, they
referee
didn't?
call.
Very bad.
Very bad referee call. No call.
Aren't you allowed to hang on? Isn't the manager allowed to challenge a certain number of
No,
them?
not in that case.
They would have had to have called the penalty to challenge it, but they didn't make the call, so they can't. Yeah, it's like they can't say, "Well, we challenge the fact that you didn't, throw a flag."
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting fact: the referee that blew the call actually used to play for the Rams.
Huh.
Oh, did not know that.
Interesting. I'm sure that's just coincidental.
I'm thinking Goodell is kind of
pulling a funny face.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, when we started the show, if you were listening, that I'd planned for Steve to be here for the whole show, but he got caught up. So let's let everybody hear about this great news that I just learned very recently. That we met personally at Oshkosh in 2017.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and at that point, what was your job?
At that point, I was working as an engineer, oil and gas industry. And that's what I've been doing for the last 16 years. Kind of boring stuff, but pays the bills.
Mm-hmm.
But as of this coming Monday, I'll be jumping into aviation full time.
Awesome. So
what?
Yeah,
that sounds brilliant.
So if you don't mind us asking, can you hear?
Not anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's. Can you
wait a minute? Didn't I mention that earlier with the engineer story?
What was that? Sorry?
No. What I was talking about earlier, right? When I was talking about whether you're an engineer and you look in the mirror and you're excited to go to work or just can't be bothered going to work, or you can go to work and hold on, I need to go back to the when we're talking.
I think we need an editor as well as a producer.
Well, no. We're talking about the global shortage, right? And whether the person was going to go ahead and make the change, right? So I was talking about an engineer and being bored, or putting on your uniform and being excited about what you do for a living.
Yes, we remember.
So
that.
now we have this unbelievable experience sitting right next to you, to your right, Jeff, that can tell us about what is really going on and what the inspiration is behind the story.
Thank you. Well, we were doing that. So go ahead. So you've always been interested in aviation?
I've always been interested in aviation.
Obviously, you go into AirVenture and
such. I've been a EAA member for as long as I can remember. I'm originally from the UK, so I was in the Air Training Corps, which I know Nick knows about.
Of course, I was a member for many years, and I instructed.
Me too. I was 137 Squadron Air in Prestwick.
Excellent. I was in 261 Squadron Guildford.
So aviation's been lifelong for me. I did try and join the Royal Air Force back in the day. Didn't quite make it as a pilot. So I jumped into engineering, but I've always had a love of flying, just never made the jump. And just recently I became a little bit disillusioned with work, maybe hitting the midlife crisis a little bit early. I'm 34, but
okay.
And basically it all comes down to my wife. Really, she really pushed me. She's like, why not? Why not look at this? So I did my private, done that, instrument rating, been working on the commercial, and this opportunity came up at Republic Airlines to do their ab initio program, albeit jumped in at an advanced stage, and going from there.
So when I saw you at AirVenture in 2017, did you have a private license?
I was working on private that time.
Okay, private certificate, I guess we have. Okay, very cool. So the ab initio program that Republic hasn't been around for very long, has it?
The first class started, I believe, September this year.
Okay,
last year.
Okay, so not even 6 months. Okay. Well, that is so awesome. So when I got contacted by Steve saying, "Hey, I noticed you're going to be in Indianapolis, and I'm going to be in Indianapolis too around that time frame. So I'd love to get together for a meetup or whatever." And then he mentioned just kind of casually, "Oh, I'm starting training with the ab initio program with Republic." So how much time do you have right now?
I've only got 250 hours or so.
250. Okay. And so the ab initio gets you how many more hours?
It takes you all the way up to so it's similar to some of the other flight schools out there, and it's orientation. So they'll take me up through CFI, CFII, MEI. You'll instruct to the 1,500 hours, and with their program, you go straight into the first class of Republic. So
okay.
There's a job offer and then of all that straight into public.
So is this something you had to pay them a certain amount of money for?
There is some cost involved.
Some cost involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Republic does sponsor the program,
But not like if you were doing this on your own.
It's way less than that.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, Steve, did you have to pre-interview for the job at Republic or no?
It was all done as part of the one kind of interview. There was a Skype interview initially, and then you go in for testing. They call it a compass test. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I wasn't when I went for it. And then an in-person interview, kind of HR type interview. And then the conditional job offer Republic is part of that offer for the ab initio program.
Wow.
Well, I say congratulations, Steve. Sounds fantastic. What are you actually flying at the moment?
Well, in the ab initio program, it's Diamond DA40s.
Okay, brilliant. And what are you likely to move on to, assuming you're going to be successful, as I'm sure you are?
They're completely Embraer 175s.
I don't know. Is that good? I don't know, guys. Is an Embraer
that is far more advanced than anything that Jeff and I fly. I mean, it's
that's
actually
not hard to achieve. Come on,
you just threw up the softball for Nick there. Yeah, it's often referred to as the jungle jet, right? It's a twin engine, wing mounted. It's smaller than the 737 A320 series of jets. Passenger capacity, 90 something? Well, I mean, it's kind of artificially
70s.
held down. It's a really nice jet. Nice, large fuselage.
Sounds like a fantastic airplane to start your career in.
That's what First Officer Craig is flying.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah, mate.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but that E175 has better avionics than you do.
I don't have any avionics, mate. I'm all biological. But it wouldn't surprise me. You know what the aviation world is like. You fly with the least amount that you can get away with.
Sure, of course,
absolutely,
but,
and it works just fine.
Steve, it's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyway,
but he hasn't got a bar in his airplane.
Probably not.
No. And if you're in uniform, you shouldn't be at the bar.
I'm always at the bar chatting to the rich passengers saying, "Oh, it's so nice to have you on board, sir."
Well, I'm in uniform.
Yeah, I serve you another champagne.
Well, it's so great to hear your story, and can't wait for all of us to follow you along in your journey.
I'll start on Monday, so
okay,
looking forward to get started.
Awesome. It starts Monday. Hey, that's fantastic.
So he literally just arrived in Indianapolis. I mean,
Yeah.
he just drove. You said you had a U-Haul.
Yeah, I just drove my U-Haul. It's actually parked just down the street.
Okay,
I haven't been home yet.
Brilliant.
He hasn't done anything except arrive in Indianapolis and knock on the studio door and come on in. So sorry about your flat tire issue.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the weather. It was 74 degrees on my left, and it's 14 degrees here.
Yeah,
that's a shock to the system.
Yeah. Awesome.
Now, is this where you'll be based from, Steve?
Well, this is where the training will take place for the next 18 months or so, and then the main headquarters for Republic is here in Indianapolis.
Okay. And have you moved up with your lovely wife, lock, stock, and barrel?
Say again, sir?
Have you moved up with your lovely wife as well?
Yep, everyone's here, wife and kids.
Yeah, she's outside the door in the hallway.
I know, they're in the house. They come.
Yeah, they're in the hallway.
Where have you dumped them?
They're out in the hallway. Don't worry about them. It's no big deal.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Well, at least bring them in and put them in the toilet with Hillel.
Hillel won't mind.
No, he won't mind. He's used to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is so great. Anything else you want to tell us?
A little bit of shout out for the wife. She's the one that made this possible. She's making some sacrifices for this. So
that is amazing. I mean, you hear that story over and over and over again, and we always recommend that if you're going to do something like this, make sure you have the approval of your partner. And
she's definitely making some sacrifices. My previous salary, she was able to stay home with the kids, but she's having to go back to work to make this financially viable. So she's the one that made this happen. So.
Yeah, wow, she's an incredible lady.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll
Hats
get
off,
absolutely
hats off to
incredible.
both of you.
Met before.
Oh, that's right. I did meet her. Yes. And you had a
I had a son at the
son.
time, and now I have a daughter since
okay,
then.
so you have two now.
We
Okay.
get two.
And we were under the wing of a DC-3.
That's right, in the pouring rain.
Yep. I remember. See,
That wasn't rain. That was fuel leaking.
it might have been, or oil. Right.
Hey, Steve, if it's any vote of confidence for you, number one, you're still very young in regards to the whole aviation world, right? So you're making a really good choice. Second thing is that my wife made this exact same sacrifice that your wife made, about the same age, and it's well worth it, especially with where the aviation and the commercial aviation, I shouldn't just say aviation, the commercial aviation world is going, with how short we are, and just the fact that you're going through an admonition program at a regional in the U.S. is just speaks volumes as to where we are right now. So I think you have a bright future. I think you're making a great choice. I think the sacrifice that your wife is making along with you to go ahead and live this dream is going to pay off for you in the end. So
yeah.
Now, I'm just curious, Steve. Don't answer this question if it doesn't suit you. But
Sure.
are you tied to your airline for any length of service or number of hours or something?
It's 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And then 5 years' time, the world will be your oyster. You'll be a captain in 5 years, won't you? Yeah, almost certainly.
probably in a year.
Yeah. Excellent. Well,
Did you
those
say
5
5
years
years?
are going to be a great learning curve for you, but the oyster is ahead of you. So, you just need to get through that and then move on to something bigger, better. I'm sure you'll have a great career.
Yeah, thank you. Can't wait to get started.
So I have one question for you, Steve. Is there a buyout on that 5 years?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay. Let's make sure, because it would surprise me if you're there for 5 years.
Well, without getting myself into trouble, financially it would make sense to buy it out if the opportunity came up.
Okay. I just had to ask that.
I would have thought in a few years there'll be some major going, "Oh, we'll buy you out. We'll pay for that. Thank you very much.
Yep,
Just come join us." If that's the way the world goes, the way we expect it to.
Yep. All right. Well, before we were so rudely interrupted by Steve and knocking on my hotel room door. We were somewhere. We were talking about something. I just don't remember what it was. Oh,
We were talking about a really boring. No, it was a lovely
sunlight
feedback.
reflection on solar panels.
Yeah, you were about to play.
I did want to comment on that.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. Yep, yeah, we have talked about it, but it was a long time ago, almost 5 years ago. And yes, they are an issue, and you are correct to assume that that could be a problem with pilots flying around these facilities. I've not had an issue with them myself. Have you all ever had a situation where you've been blinded?
I've seen them, Jeff. They're there, but I'm going to say they're no brighter than the sun, and the sun's always there. If you've got a low sun, you're going to have trouble looking into it. Just as if you've got something reflecting the sun, it's not going to be quite as intense, but you're going to have exactly the same problem. So I'm going to say we have the sun in the sky all the time. We manage to cope. What's the problem with a reflection? And there are reflections all around the world. You come into any city airport, you're going to have skyscrapers, you're going to have reflections from those. I personally don't see it as a problem, but perhaps that's me. I've got cataracts. I expect that's the problem. I just can't see.
Yeah, it's because you're probably staring at the sun all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And my only comment on that is that if you're landing on a east-west runway and you try to take off or land into the sun, that can be far more problematic than the solar array of the solar panels. And one of the coolest things I've ever seen from the flight deck, and I'm sure both of you have seen that, Nick and Jeff, is that when you're landing with the sun either behind you, well, generally behind you, you see reflection off all of the highway signs, and all the signs on the roadways. You can see all of them reflecting that sunlight back at you. It's actually pretty cool to see that. But as far as the solar panels creating an issue, never have had that. But landing into the sun or taking off into the sun, more specifically landing into the sun, can be very problematic.
Yes, it can be.
And that's
All right,
always why I have a bad landing.
Yeah, it has something to do with the sun.
That's excuse number 27 in
gotta
my
have a lot
list of excuses.
Yes. Never run out of excuses. Yeah, the seat wasn't adjusted quite right. Yada, yada,
So,
yada.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry?
No, carry on.
Okay. So, Brett, hope that answers your question. Now, if you had the syndrome, you would have remembered us talking about, or me talking about it on episode 109. Trust me, you don't need to go back. All right, Jim, quickly, Captains Jeff and Dana. Hope this, no, yeah. So, Nick, look the other way, cover your ears.
Oh, no, I've got something to show you in a minute. You carry on.
Hope this note finds you well as someone who spends more time each year on the wrong side of the cockpit door. Now, there's no such thing as a wrong side of the cockpit door on the right, but just the other side of the cockpit door. I do at the controls of my, okay, let me start over. As someone who spends more time each year on the wrong side of the cockpit door than I do at the controls of my J model Mooney, okay, I've earned premier status at my company's preferred airline. Each year, the airline creates a bit of pomp and circumstance around achieving status. Some years, they send chocolates or interesting reprints from their archive. This year, they've included something really special, and I thought you'd appreciate seeing it. They've created bag tags from a retired MD-80. Having spent many hours crisscrossing the U.S. aboard that fleet, it really made me smile. Keep up the great work, and thanks for adding the calendar function. I hope to catch the crew at a meetup soon. All the best, Jim Drake, and he has a picture of his bag tags from American Airlines. This was taken from tail number November 479 AA, and it's made from the actual fuselage skin of the airplane. Very cool.
So here's what I was going to show you, and
you show
that
us?
is, there you go. Now that is part of a poor old 340 that was retired from the service from a certain Acme Red, and I got it for Christmas, and it's a piece. And what I love about this is that they've got the original paint on it, and so it's got the lovely metallic white and the purple in this case that was around the tail. And it's a lovely memento to have of one of the aircraft that I used to fly. This is from Varga Girl, registration GVGAS.
Very cool. Varga Girl. Very
Yeah,
nice.
named after the guy who used to do the nose art of the aircraft.
Right, and he did a lot of what do they call them? Pinup girl art.
Yeah,
I mean, not only for airplanes, but for like posters and calendars and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you say old?
Who's old?
340 old? Just goes to show how the Airbus is more of a throwaway airplane. You want to talk about old? Let's look at the Mad Dog that we're flying since the mid 80s. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an old airplane.
Actually, that's the 1880s, I presume you're talking about.
It is the 1880s before they invented running water and electricity.
Yeah, your toilet's just a hole in the aircraft floor, is that right?
Yeah,
340 old. Wow.
Well, for me it is, because it's gone.
Yeah. Okay.
Could be to me, horrible man.
See how tough it is for me to keep this thing going. All right, number 6, Peter. Messing with buttons in the cockpit. Hello, APG crew. I was amused by a recent comment by Captain Jeff about resisting the temptation to tinker with things in the cockpit, and was reminded of the story of National Airlines Flight 27. In brief, during cruise on a DC-10, the flight crew wondered aloud whether the autothrottle system received its information from the cockpit engine tachometer or from some other source. So, to test their theory, they pulled the circuit breaker for the instrument, adjusted the autothrottle controls, and observed the engine change speed. Satisfied with their experience, experiment. They popped the breaker back in, and the number 3 engine suffered an uncontained fan blade separation that pierced a cabin window, causing a passenger to be ejected from the aircraft. Whoops. Now, I know you fine pilots would never do such a thing, but I have to imagine that in all your combined years of flying, you must have heard about or experienced crew members who couldn't help but let curiosity get the best of them. I would love to hear your stories, Peter. And I will include in the show notes the link, Wikipedia story of the National Airlines Flight 27, DC-10. So
Peter, nothing that I'm going to admit to.
Now, obviously, I mentioned that I've been curious about stuff, but I've always been too chicken to do it, thinking that something horrible would go wrong and end my career, which I like really a lot.
There is something very specific in our POH, FOM, whatever you want to call it. It says we're not supposed to do specific things these days, and so I just don't do it anymore. Did it today? No. So, anyways, yeah, we don't do that, especially in flight. It's just not. It's just too risky to do that. There's some latitude. Like, for example, if the captain deems a reset of a circuit breaker is operationally prudent to do so, but there's certain circuit breakers you don't reset, like hydraulic pumps and fuel pumps and etc. So you just you don't play around with things anymore. Just too much risk out there.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. So there you go, Peter. Hope you're satisfied with that. We're not going to fess up on this show because we've never done anything.
No, we don't do anything. I mean, it's crazy to do so. If it's written, then the lawyers can have a field day with it, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of that at all.
Yep. Hey, we were just talking about Steve's great and supportive wife, and we were talking about Dana's great and very supportive wife, and I know that Nick has one of those as well, with his Air Force, his Royal Air Force and Australian Air Force career, and his civilian career. I believe this bit of feedback, audio feedback sent in by Greg, kind of talks about that a little bit.
Hi, APG crew. It's Greg from Sydney here. Just finished listening to episode 358 and it's raised a couple of questions. Early on, Captain Nick mentioned his crisis with one of his fur babies and how he had to leave to do a job, to do a flight, and that how he knew his very capable wife would be able to handle the issue. And Captain Jeff, you've also mentioned in the past the independence and strength of your other half, and same with Dana, and in how she supported him during his early days in flying. And then later on, Josine's comments regarding the 94% of pilots being in a stable relationship and etc. And it got me thinking, what in their previous lives did your three wives do? Obviously, they weren't always going to be, using air quotes here, airline widows. They obviously had something else in mind before they met you three. What was that, if I could ask? This is Greg in Sydney. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Greg in Sydney. Nick, you want to start?
Yeah, well, it's always traditional, apparently, for pilots to marry nurses or teachers. So I didn't know many nurses, so I married a teacher.
Okay. When I met my wife, and after we were married, I was going to do my airline career, and she was going to be, her career was going to be in the banking industry. And then at that point, we didn't even think we were going to have any children. So, but when we started thinking about children and she became pregnant with our first child, who was going to be 32 in July, she decided that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so she basically quit her career in the banking industry and was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years. So now she's been doing some this for I don't know how long, maybe 9 or 10 years, something like that. Chief financial officer of a nonprofit that she does part time and from the home. But anyway, so that's what my Linda does.
Yeah, in my case, all along my wife has known that my dream has always been to be an airline pilot, and we met in the airline business way back in a very small carrier, a regional carrier for Delta Airlines out of Boston called Business Express Airlines. Way back when, prior to my previous employers. Now I'm with the Acme, and she's 100% supportive of what I do now, and she has been supportive the entire time. When I met her, I was in college, aviation degree. That's what my specialty was. Went for the management end of it because at that point in my career, I wasn't able to afford it, and she was very supportive all the way through my education, my working for certain airlines, and then the decision to go ahead and vacate working as a ground personnel to live the dream that I've always sought. Like, I spend most of my time encouraging people to do on this show, and that is to go live your dream. And she has been instrumental, very much like I talked to Steve here a little while ago. That it's very imperative, or it's very important to have that support to make that change. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't know Jeff. I wouldn't know Nick. I wouldn't be part of this great community that we have. And fortunately, if it wasn't for her, that without her support, I wouldn't be here. So I owe it all to her. And 28 years later, we're still happily married. Well, I'm sorry, 20 years later for the marriage part. 28 years together, and she's been instrumental in the whole entire process. So thank you to her. And what else can you say? I mean, it's amazing. Without our support of our significant others, we probably wouldn't be here.
Very good. All right. Well, with that, I think it's now time. I think we're over the 3-hour mark, so it's time to shut this thing down. Lots of great feedback still in the feedback folder that we're going to cover and move to the next show. So again, if you want to send us some feedback, feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. There's a feedback page on the apps, and you can go to the website as well. There's a SpeakPipe link if you want to send some audio feedback, etc. And we're also on social media. Captain Nick, you want to do the honors?
Yeah. If should I speak in Steph's voice, or I use my own?
I think you should speak in Steph's voice. Yes.
Okay. Right. Well, if you fancy getting us on Twitter, you can try at APG Crew. And if you want to see us on Facebook, just look for airlinepilotguy.com. No, Airline Pilot Guy. That's it. Just Airline Pilot Guy.
I just like it. Thank you. And of course, we have a Slack team. So, Hillel, would you like to tell us about Slack?
Hello.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. And until next time. Until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless. Bye, everybody. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Sexy.
Bye-bye.
That sounded more like stuff than anybody. Bye-bye. Just kidding.
Bye-bye.
Just kidding, Steph. She doesn't listen to this stuff.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah. Get out of here, Dana. Spend some time with your wife.
Yep. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, well, I don't trust you guys to be talking about me.
We're not going to say anything bad about you, Dana.
Turn your recorders off.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to turn mine off. Let me know if you need it. I'm not going to immediately send it, but
okay, yeah. Normally I don't, but I'll let you know.
Let me know. I'll be home Friday.
Okay.
Well, you know what? The hell with it. I'll just send it to you.
Okay. Whatever
floats my boat, right?
All right.
Blows my skirt up.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody in the chat room, for hanging with us. Wait, let's get there. There we go. Windows. I just don't have enough screens here, to cover all this stuff. Actually, I do. Fear of missing out. Yes. FOMO. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. I know, Nick, it's how late for you right now?
It's only 1:30. That's a little earlier than it was last week, where I didn't really get to bed till about 3.
Well, now you get to go to bed early tonight.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
I just went up for like 25 hours.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I don't care if you talk about me, so I'm just going to dive off and say
We're not going to talk about you, man. Except for how great you are.
Yeah, that'll be the bloody day. All right, mate. Everyone, bye. Nice to see you, Steve. And good luck. Really wishing you well for your career. I hope that comes off. And nice to see you guys. And bye, everyone in the chat room. And see you next week.
I'm going to shut it down too. So,
all right, me too.
All right,
good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Let's see. I got to find the right